for the win. Kick is blocked. And SMU falls on it, and we're going to overtime.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Genty, the Clydesdales are in. Is Genty in? No signal yet. No signal
this
yet.
Is so close.
On 4th and goal. Officials are there. Touchdown!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And Reed looking to throw. Nope, not for long. Takes off running and will spin down near the goal line. And they will shove him into the end zone for a touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here comes a trick play and a throwback to Ward. This will help his numbers. A touchdown catch. And his 28th touchdown responsible for. It's the tight end Elijah Arroyo with the pass.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
On 3rd down and 7, here comes the pressure. Retzloff reads it, gets up through it. He's got a first down inside the red zone, still going, and he's gone for the touchdown. 29-yard scramble for Jake Retzloff.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome in. Smokeless Fridays, brought to you by some old-timey tobacco, of which name I've forgotten already. Was it? It had it was an old-timey name. Puncher. Punchers.
I believe it was Punchers, yes.
Yeah, Punchers. Brought to you by Punchers. Punchers. You'll get cancer, but you'll do it like a man. So, who cares about your teeth? Welcome in. It is Friday. It is College Football Friday. So we have found that Wednesdays are the days that the college football media kind of takes off.
Correct.
So then that's harder to run into a topic, right? So anyway, but Fridays, there's just a treasure trove of things, and including a couple interesting things that we'll get to all before about 3:25, when we will then take a break. And then after said break, we will call Sam Kahn on the telephone because he's going to be in transit between things. He had to volunteer for his kid's school today. He has a call with the bosses. Then he's going to be on with us. A lot of stuff for Sam. He's a very in-demand guy. And then we've got Grayson Grunhafer. We'll have Peyton Soysher, he is very excited because the CFP rankings, this is what they've been building
That's
to.
what he wants, man.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of Peyton next week on the Triple Option channel because we're going to have him do some segments for us, kind of explaining things Monday, Tuesday, kind of what to look for or things that happened or could happen. And then Wednesday, Thursday, building up to the segment, some takeaways from the week. So that's going to come up, and those will be exciting. Don't worry, Garrett. You don't have to do anything. I will take care of it.
Okay. Good to know.
Yes. So that there's no problem. I mean, Emory might have to do something, but you won't.
Okay. Cool.
That's how we work here. So that's all coming up today, plus Kenneth Davis, Evan Abrams, and Josh Neighbors. And we have some exciting news with Josh as well. Mm-hmm. So all that's coming up. Garrett, before we get to it, last night was Halloween.
It was.
So I can promise you this will never happen to me in parades. But I had this discussion with Amanda last night.
Okay.
You have known me for
almost
long
a decade.
Time. Almost a decade. In that decade, I have never been a person who has subscribed to Halloween.
You have not.
And it's disappointed you as my friend.
It has. I love Halloween.
Yeah, you love Halloween. It's your favorite holiday.
Not a big Christmas person.
Yeah. Halloween's your favorite holiday. I will tell you something. As the Halloween Grinch is dead. He's dead. I killed him. I'm into it now.
Good.
I'm into
you should
it.
Be.
It was And here's the thing. Amanda and I are not people who are ever really going to dress up for Halloween. I mean, I
not
probably
about
would.
that.
What?
It's not necessarily about that.
I probably would before her, to be quite honest with you, because I'm, more theatrical in nature, I guess. But last night we had a few trick-or-treaters. Our first one was Parker.
Yep.
You brought him over, which was great. Amanda had never met Parker in all these years, and he was a ninja pirate ninja. Doesn't matter. He was so excited and so into it. And then he almost moved in.
He did.
So last night, it was hilarious. And Parker, for those of you who have not heard us talk about it, Parker has Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. He is a ball of personality.
Yes.
I mean, energy, personality. Like, I look very, I think about now, 20-year-old Parker, 30-year-old Parker.
Dude.
He's going to be fun to be around. He just is.
Yes, he is.
He is. He's been in here a few times. I'm sure some of you have seen, when he comes in here, he's on the show.
He takes over the show.
Whether we want him to be or not,
yes, it's happening.
He's going to be on the show. And why would we not want him to be? We just wish he would time it out maybe a little bit better.
Everything is on Parker's time.
Yes. But Parker came over, got to meet Amanda. Amanda was very excited to meet him. And then, so we have, here, I'm going to grab a prop real quick, Garrett.
All right, run and grab it.
Yeah. So this is, we do, Amanda and her mother are full-size candy people.
Y'all are one of 3 houses we come across last night.
Yeah.
That are doing full
So
size.
this is the leftovers right here. We're full-size candy people. Well, I think that inspired Parker to decide, I'm going to stay here for a little bit. So he came in, gave hugs and he was excited, got his candy. And we gave him, he was the first one. So we were already, it's 7:15 or so. So it's already kind of waning towards the night where our street, which is cool, but it's not super well lit.
Yeah.
So the prime time between it is 6 and 7:30 is when the kids come around on our street because there's only a few street lights. It's kind of dim. Mm-hmm. So, but you came over, you were the first one. We had 4 or 5 after you. And Parker takes his candy bars and gets kind of 1 or 2 of each. And then he's like, all right, bye-bye, Daddy. Bye-bye, Mommy.
Try to kick us out.
Tried to kick us out. We almost had him for the night. And
that was probably, I don't know how long that would have lasted. He probably could have made it for about an hour, and then he would have been like, okay.
Wait, hold on.
Wait a minute.
When do I get to go back to my house? Oh, you're out of candy now? Yeah, we're out. We didn't. We're out. You ate it all. It's gone.
Well, he was looking at your awesome kitchen setup. I think he's like, I'm about to go throw down in there.
Yeah. So no, it was it was great. It was exciting. It made the night. And then after it got left, I told Amanda, I never I would turn the light off. I was the curmudgeon in the neighborhood. And then somebody mentioned to me, look, they can see you.
You're not fooling anybody.
You have to watch, your television's on. So I would go watch TV upstairs. And and so then, a lot of the neighbors knew that, a lot of time I'm not there. I was not there. I was doing something, working, covering. So if it's a Friday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right, it's expected you're not there.
I'm not there.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of times where I just, not get home until 8 o'clock, and then it's over anyway. Sometimes intentionally. I'll just say that. But Amanda's melted my heart. She really enjoys the trick-or-treaters and all that. And it's just, I have to say, I have to announce some personal growth. I'm happy about it. I'm happy for you. I have a different perspective on it. And Parker was the final nail in the Halloween Grinch's costume or coffin. That was it. Halloween Grinch is over. It's over. It's done.
Awesome. Good deal.
I've embraced it wholeheartedly. Well, half-heartedly. You're not going to see me, dressing up. I think adults put way too much effort into their costumes. Although, in my single life, I didn't mind it as much. It's different when you're married.
Yep.
But when I was in college, I rather enjoyed Halloween because you would just go out and you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize that that was a costume.
Yeah.
The sexy insert weird
Whatever
random garbage man. All right, there you go. Thanks, Tiffany. That was kind of how it was. All right, let's get to the news of the day. Some good news for the Nittany Lions as Drew Aller, their quarterback, expected to play. He'd been battling a leg injury suffered versus Wisconsin, so he will play. How much he has to deal with that, we'll see. We will see. So next up, SMU quarterback Kevin Jennings has been cleared medically for the top 20 clash with Pittsburgh, and SMU Pitt playoff implications.
It's crazy to think, man, but I'm glad to see this. I was thinking about this earlier. Like, we've seen programs who have changed conferences really struggle, especially if you're going up and you're making that leap from the group of 5 heading in. SMU hasn't missed a beat. It's been really impressive to see what they did. We knew the culture's there with Rhett Lashley. They have the money and everything, but the early on success and knowing how difficult that is, especially with travel and everything, it's been really impressive to see. I'm glad Kevin Jennings is available for this game. It sucks that they've already lost R.J. Maryland. I think those two have played a really instrumental part in their success this season, so you didn't need to go into this big matchup missing 2 of your key pieces on offense. On the flip side, too, you're also going to have Eli Holstein back for Pitt, so this should be a really fun matchup. I don't necessarily think it's going to get the proper attention it deserves, especially with it being on the ACC network. I would like to see this one like on ESPN or something, but at the same time, everybody's at the mercy of the ESPN right now. But still, this is going to be a fun matchup. And like you mentioned yesterday, there's no way in hell anybody was thinking this was going to be this type of game and this type of ramifications around it. But it should be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing this one.
Yeah, I'm excited about this game. I really am. SMU and Pitt, and nobody would have pegged that at the beginning of the year. Nobody would have pegged it at the beginning of the year at all. All right, some bad quarterback news for the Utes. Utah, Kyle Whittingham told KSL Sports Zone that Sam Heward had surgery for an injury and is out for the season. So he is not part of the conversation when it comes to the quarterback battle that Utah has going on between Isaac Wilson and Brandon Rose. Maybe he will be next year, but not right now. And Utah continues to just not have a quarterback 2 years in a row now. And I just wondered this, of course, from Jake Hatch, who works for the Zone, and we've had him here many times.
Yep.
But I'm kind of bummed for Kyle Whittingham because I do feel like this could be it.
Yeah.
And this is how he had to go out, and I think he and Cam Rising kind of maybe we're going to go out together. Now, is there a chance Cam Rising can come back and get his medical red shirt?
Don't.
Yes. I just don't think he should. I think the writing's on the wall. And, I think the best example Ari Temp can give us was like Tony Romo, where, look, man, every time you get hit, you get hurt.
Yeah.
Like, you got to read the writing on the wall. I know you still feel it, but, there's a life after this.
Well, and my thing, too, is, if he just wanted to be a part of, that quarterback room, or he really just loved Utah and embrace – because he seems like he would embrace what the definition of the Utah man is type thing. He could easily be a GA. He could easily be on that staff. So there's not necessarily any reason for him to come back and play. Yeah. I don't think he will in either way. I think at the same time, if you're Isaac Wilson, I think he's getting a lot of – because he hasn't looked great, but I don't know that it's necessarily justified. This is a young guy that doesn't really have the weapons around him. So I think a lot of their struggles and the talk around him is kind of unfair. But at the same time, you kind of knew this was going to happen, so you should have better positioned yourself from a coaching standpoint if you were Utah.
By the way, I just want everybody to know that Garrett is actually in this room. He's over in the corner.
Yes.
It looks on that shot like we lock him away in a shed. And that's
dungeon
or under the stairs like Harry Potter.
Definitely Harry Potter vibes.
Yeah, definitely under the stairs. What was his cousin's name?
Oh my God. Don't I don't know. Yeah. I can't remember.
But yeah, here I am, walking around living all high on the hog, and then
I'm just over here stuffed in a box.
Aunt and uncle, under the little room under the stairs.
I'll survive.
Till Hagrid comes along, owl in hand. All right, next up, John Mateer, Washington State quarterback. Got this today from Washington State. They sent it out, and it was part of the Davey O'Brien. He's up for that, and they have voting on that. One of the best quarterback in the country. John Mateer through 8 games, 7-1 start, for the number 22 ranked Cougs. All right, they are a group of 5 team that could get involved in this, but they're going to need Boise State to lose.
Correct.
Because their loss is to Boise State. But second in FBS for total TDs, fourth in FBS for total offense. He is having a great year. He's super athletic. That's why they weren't like bemoaning losing Cam Ward. But my question for you, Garrett, is can he be Washington State's Ashton Genty?
I mean, I think he is Washington State.
No, but can he get what I'm saying is next year where believe me, the world is going to come at him.
I think yes, because we know how important and crucial it is for people to get quarterbacks in the transfer portal. So people are going to come after him.
But
so
does he want to say no?
Does he want to stay? That's the thing. It's hard to say. Like, I think it's different from a quarterback position. If somebody's going to throw a ton of money at him, I could see him leaving. I'll say this. I think with those type of numbers, he should get an invite to New York this year. I don't necessarily think he stays put in Pullman. I'm not sold that he's going to be the quarterback there next year because I know there's going to be plenty of opportunities for teams across the country that need a quarterback and that he's going to receive so many calls. And I don't necessarily think that I don't think it's going to be easy for him to stay put in Pullman as it was for Ashton Genty to stay at Boise. So I can see him leaving after this season.
Yeah. And we'll see. But, and if he does, I hope he does stay at Wazoo. I really do.
I think it would be great for them.
I really do. Unless he goes to a place that I like. then to hell with you. No, I'm just saying. But, I think he's going to get, there's already people.
Absolutely.
That are going, Pullman, Washington is so far away from anything. You guys don't even have an airport. It's like a 2-hour drive from the closest airport you can fly into. You got to go all the way to Spokane.
And then, also, seeing the success of somebody who literally just did what you're going to have the opportunity to do, there's a lure there to take it. Yeah. I
don't think Spokane's 2 hours away, but you get my point. Yeah, you get my point. So, but anyway, we'll see. Next up, these are awful.
Terrible.
These are awful. I will say this. I do like the OA logo.
Is that like the Avengers type thing?
No, it's the interlocking OA, which is the official letter emblem of the OA Association, organized in October 1909 by the athletes of Oklahoma A&M College, which is now Oklahoma State University. So that I like. But these stripes, these are not good. No good, not good. This is, look, if they're going to wear this once, and they'll probably
earn it.
Yeah.
The uniform itself isn't terrible. When you throw that striping in, it looks awful. It looks like a bad Halloween costume is what it looks like. And I just imagine as fiery and things as Ollie Gordon can be, I can't wait to see him get stuffed in that and just be throwing a fit, whining in that outfit. That's going to be hilarious.
Yeah. By the way, they ask why you can't sit over in one of these chairs.
Because I got to produce them.
Yeah, he's got to produce. There's a theory that Craig wouldn't let you sit there. That's not true.
That's not true.
In fact, he would love it.
He would.
If you guys could switch spots, he could do the show from back there and you can produce from right here.
He'd take it.
He would love it. You saw the mask yesterday. That went in the
That was so perfect.
That went in the opposite direction that I thought it was going to.
It was so perfect.
Yeah, I thought there was no way he was going to wear it. I think he was going to look at us and be like, "You guys are idiots. You just show ponies over there." And then he put it on, and he's like, "I don't want to take it off."
It was the perfect mask for him.
I think because he's a wrestling fan, we should get him a Lucha Libre mask because they have a
little
hole for the mouth. So. Or most of them do. I guess some of them don't. But I think he would go. He might go in for that. As ridiculous as it would look. And I think a lot of those now are breathable. They make them with they're not like leather or anything. It's like a nylon kind of thing they pull up. From Ross Dellinger, some conference realignment news. Hooray! We need a really lame confetti effect,
like the happy birthday thing.
Yeah, just that when there's conference realignment news. however minor. Grand Canyon University, where Bryce Drew is the basketball coach, is they don't have football, but they are joining the Mountain West as full members. They've been to the NCAA tournament 3 of 4 years. Again, Bryce Drew is the coach there. Mountain West, they were going to join the WCC, and then the Zags left.
Yep.
So now they are in the Mountain West. So for you realignment people, especially Adam, who loves the Mountain West, Grand Canyon University in Phoenix is on its way there. Molly Miller is the women's basketball coach there. Mm-hmm. She was the runner-up for the job here at Baylor.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm glad to see them get their opportunity. I also like this from a standpoint that it actually makes sense geographically. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not a terrible move for them.
Yeah.
And being able to go into that conference. Utah State can be pretty good at basketball at times. San Diego State's going to be in the pack now, but there's going to be some good basketball played over there. I think they can contend. So good for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as of today, by the way, I did not say this off the top. I should have. Today is Amanda, my wife's birthday.
Happy birthday, Amanda.
So happy birthday, Amanda. We will celebrate by decorating our house for Christmas tonight.
Can't get with that, but cool.
Yeah, I mean, I married Buddy I married Buddy the Elf. I did. You know, like, it's just.
You still got that nut. Did she get you or you had to get like a big nutcracker?
Yeah. I should have shown. He's in the garage. I named him Colonel Kensington. And so every time I come in the house and he's there, I was like, hello, Kensington. Just because but yes, he's there and he lights up. Yeah. He's there.
Yep.
Man, it was a thing. I had to order it. Like, here's the thing. I got it from Sam's Club. I had to order it because I could have gone and bought it, but Emery, I knew Emery was out of town. He's got a pickup truck. My other friend with a pickup truck, it would not have fit in either one of our cars. It's that tall.
Nope.
So I had to order it, which it was free shipping, but even still was weird. I remember seeing the UPS driver, dragging it up, going oh, my God. You know. I was like, I know, buddy. I know. I get it. But, yes, so we'll do that tonight. Very excited for her birthday. But, yes, that's what you wanted to do. We got a cookie cake. We got some charcuterie.
I get down for charcuterie.
Oh, yeah. I love charcuterie. Here's the thing. The older you get, I'm a very basic bitch now, Garrett. Yes. I'm in for, give me some charcutes and some brunch, and
That's all you need.
Yeah, exactly. I am. So that's all that I need. Okay. Coaching carousel as of today is East Carolina, Fresno State, Rice, Southern Miss, and Utah State. Obviously, none of these jobs are earth shatterers, like a Florida would be if that comes open, or Baylor or Arkansas, or any of the teams have been West Virginia, Oklahoma, UCF right now. These are all the guys that are in a little bit of trouble. But which of these jobs, Garrett? Mm-hmm. If these were the 5 jobs, if you were up for all 5 of them, okay. If you're up for all 5 of these jobs, ECU, Fresno State, Rice, Southern Miss, and Utah State, which one do you take?
Oh, me? I'm taking East Carolina. Because I think it's located where you can recruit the Eastern Seaboard. You can go in and get a lot of the guys who aren't going to be able to go to Georgia and play in the South. I also just for me, when I look at or ask these things, I think about living conditions, everything. I would rather live in the state like North Carolina. So I would take ECU. What about you?
I would take Fresno State. About to go into the pack, California talent I can get. Now, granted, Fresno and the Valley there it's not San Francisco, it's not San Diego, it's not LA. But
proximities though. You can get there. You can get there from proximity wise.
But I mean, I can get athletes from there.
Yes.
As long as they, understand that this town is a little more rural, than anything else. But I would take Fresno State. I mean,
I think they got the tradition. They probably got about the best tradition.
I would East Carolina would be my second. Southern Miss would be my third, Rice fourth, and Utah State fifth.
I would probably flip Utah State and Rice simply because recruiting to Rice is so difficult.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about like just living and stuff, hell yeah, I would go live in Houston and coach at Rice. But like, I just think it's the obstacles you have to overcome there as a coach make it less interesting for me out of those choices.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and the last thing we're going to discuss here, this is just food for thought.
Okay.
Every Ryan Day, this is from Ben Axelrod, who works for Awful Announcing. Every Ryan Day debate comes down to whether you think Ohio State made Ryan Day or the other way around. So he is not like he is about to. We'll talk about this with two different guests today, maybe even Sam. We'll get to it with Sam eventually, probably, but maybe not because we have it. Well, yeah, Kenneth Davis brings it up, and so does Evan Abrams. Well, we had to record those earlier. Sorry, but but so we have that. Neither of these coaches in this game have good records against the top 10. Top 5 especially. They're both top 5 teams, so something's got to give here.
Right.
Ryan Dave's only knock is that he's a slightly better version of James Franklin, right? He has, he's
got some big wins, but not Michigan.
Yeah, but not Michigan. And look, they didn't win their bowl game last year against Mizzou, who I don't know, where Mizzou was ranked when that happened, but you get my point. Going back a couple of years ago, they had that terrible defense, and they, before he brought in Jim Knowles. So, all of that's, bubbled over for them in the past. And partially because, and this is not every year, but Ohio State the last couple of years has not had that challenging of a schedule. Now, last year they did get a win over Notre Dame because Notre Dame, as academically wonderful as it is, did not do math, and gave them an extra play.
Yeah.
Also could have maybe made a play on Abuka when he caught that pass. But all that notwithstanding, so that has to go. It is a chicken or the egg kind of argument here.
Right.
Ryan Day, he took over for Urban Meyer. So I don't think you can make a very strong argument that he made Ohio State. I can make a good argument that he was an excellent choice and that he's kept them in the conversation, as where a lot of times those kind of things don't happen. So did they make a good choice bringing him in to maintain? Yes. But he clearly hasn't gotten to the point where he can win in the big moments like his two predecessors, Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel, did.
Reading that, I don't think Ryan Day made Ohio State by any means. I think Ryan Day holds Ohio State back. Ohio State definitely made Ryan Day. If you're talking about, when I read that, my first thought was well, hell, Woody Hayes made Ohio State. Yeah. He made Ohio State. To me, when I think of Ryan Day, he's a really good coach. I told you this. To me, he is a carbon copy of Mark Richt. He is 11-1. He's going to win you 10, 11, anywhere from 9 to 11 games a year. But he could not get over the hump, and when it comes down to it, he's going to get out-coached. And while most programs would want him, he could make a long career. He could pull a Kurt Ferentz if he was at the right type of place. Ohio State is not that place. There are probably 5 programs with that standard where that wouldn't fly at. He just happens to be coaching at one of them. He's going to have a very successful career. But at the end of the day, no, he did not make Ohio State. And if anything, he's holding them back. And I don't know how much longer he's honestly got there.
Yeah.
I don't see him being at Ohio State longer than 3 years. I think it's ultimately going to come to an end within the next 3 years. And barring some miracle where he reels off winning a national championship and owning Michigan a couple times, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah. By the way, Adam McDonald asked, can the NCAA schedule a game on Monday after Labor Day? They do every year. LSU played it. Yeah. No, they played Sunday, right?
They played Sunday. Yeah, they played Sunday.
But FSU and LSU 2 years in a row played Monday after Labor Day. So, it happens all the time. But Wet Blanket is the roast master of Ryan Day in the roast of Ryan Day. Day has a fake beard. Day wears makeup. Jim Knowles saved Day's day.
Yes, he did. I'll give you that.
Yes. So, very good, Wet Blanket. Very good. I did not see what he said about the uniforms.
He should be pissed at Jim Knowles, like, because Oklahoma State's defense has been terrible since then.
Yeah.
It has been brutal.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. Excellent stuff. He's Jim Knowles went over there. And again, Oklahoma State, you heard this from Gundy quite a bit in that he keeps saying that, okay, we don't have the resources, we don't have this, like we need that. And I know that's every coach, but he brought over, he brought in a defensive coordinator from Division II to replace Mason when Mason left. So I don't disagree with that tact, but from Gannon University or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So he brought that guy over, and it has not worked out. I mean, that's a drop off, and he brought in a young coach, and he'll probably figure it out eventually. But right now, Oklahoma State, they miss Jim Knowles more than any coach that's probably left in a long, long time.
Absolutely do.
Yeah. So, absolutely. So, I don't know. No, he's not a fan of Nardell. Wet Blank is not a fan. No, they're not. And look, they don't have talent on that side, especially after you lose your two best defensive players. Last week, and I've seen Mike Gundy teams in person, not just against Baylor, but other teams as well. That is the worst Mike Gundy team I've ever seen.
That's bad.
I mean, the worst. And there's been years where they've not been great, but they
haven't been like this.
They haven't been like that. A couple years ago when they had all those injuries, that team still, you could see it, like they're just young, right? And they're having to play a lot of young guys. But they had the one night where like everybody who was their like usual special teamers were out. Like, it was the weirdest rash of injuries I've ever seen a team get. It was 22, right? It was 22 because they were feeling good after 21. Yep. Spencer Sanders came back, and then he was one of those guys who was hurt half the year, all those things. And everything just kind of fell apart for them. So this is different. This is a different thing.
It feels like it's over, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
it does.
Yeah, it's so strange. So it's so strange. When we come back, the one, the only, Sam Kahn of The Athletic joins us. This is 365 Sports.
PettyClinicLowT.com can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Hi, this is David Smoke. As you get older, usually upper 30s, but most likely in your 40s and eventually the 50s, when you get your testosterone checked, 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have low testosterone levels. It's part of father time. It's just living life, and that clock starts to tick. Maybe you're fortunate it doesn't have any effect on you. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Tell them I sent you. They will set you up to get your blood work. If they get the results Dr. Petty does, he'll look at them, and then if you need testosterone boost, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone levels so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. PettyClinicLowT.com.
It's Jeep Adventure Days at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals are hotter than ever. Drive a new 2024 Jeep Compass Latitude for only $24,995. Or how about leasing a new Fiat 500e for only $149 a month? Whether you're ready for an adventure in a Jeep or zipping around in a stylish Fiat, we've got you covered. Hurry to Allen Samuels in Waco today.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
At
Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
I am calling Sam Kahn right now, and he'll hear. Here's the thing, Sam, when he answers the phone, we can just do it this way, Garrett.
Hello.
There we go. Sam Kahn of The Athletic. When you're hosting the show by yourself, sometimes you got to make calls on the fly. I did that in my radio days, Sam. You've had a packed week, and today, between personal and professional obligations, for fitting us in, thank you so much for doing that. We always love having you, and would hate to go a week without you. Our viewers and listeners, they adore you too much, Sam. It would be too much for them to take.
It's okay. You know, we had too much going on. I feel like the week was going okay until we started talking about helmet communications and police scanners and all this other espionage that comes with the sport. Then my week, I feel like, got upended about that when that started coming out on Tuesday night.
So, Sam, here's, after reading everything and seeing everything, my view on that situation. All of the headsets, everyone's headsets were compromised and not encrypted. Every single team. Everyone. Texas Tech, in the midst of a 2-game losing streak, took that information, and a small group of their fans, and a couple of them who are well-placed, maybe got a little out of control and thought it was just about them. Am I missing anything there?
Here's what I would say. I think definitely they are the loudest voice in this, and it doesn't seem like anybody else has made it as big of a deal about it. The thing we don't know is, did an opponent use it against another opponent, whether it was Texas Tech or whether it was anybody? I don't know that we'll ever know the answer to that question. The Big 12 said they did their review. I did find it interesting that review seemed to take less than 24 hours. So I have some questions about that. But I will say, I think Texas Tech's biggest gripe, more so than the game, I think, is the fact that they were vulnerable, that everyone was vulnerable, and specifically them, obviously, for essentially a month. Because this issue got flagged on September 28th when they played at AT&T Stadium. And I'll say this, I'll give you this disclaimer as I say this. I've talked to a lot of people not connected to Texas Tech and the people across the Big 12 about this. And I've met with some similar reactions in terms of how flabbergasted people were that, hey, this was brought up at the end of September, start of October, and we're here at the end of October and it has not been dealt with. And so that to me is the biggest issue, is the fact that it was flagged at the A&M Arkansas game. The Big 12 and maybe GSD, the helmet communications company, had made it clear that this was going to be rectified, you know, in a swift manner. But also, it was they were led to believe that it wasn't that big of a deal. And then Joey McGuire on Tuesdays got somebody drop an audio recording of his team's defensive calls in his office. And so I can see why you would get a little alarmed by that, because if just some person can do that, then who else has it? And has it been used against you? And so I think this was a communication breakdown and a logistical breakdown from the Big 12. This should have been handled the week after it was flagged against A&M Arkansas, and not us talking about it a month later.
Well, yeah, okay. True. Very, very, very true. All right, A&M, LSU last week, you were there. Garrett was there. What was that atmosphere like? Before we even get to the implications long-term of what that means for the Aggies, what was that compared to some of the other A&M games you've been to? Because I know you've been to a lot.
First of all, I'll say the best part of the game was me and Garrett getting to chop it up in the press box before the game.
Yes,
that
sir.
was a lot of fun because we just sat there and talked about Texas football for like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was great. That's and it wasn't just A&M. We were talking about freaking UTSA. You know, it was just like everybody in the spectrum. But yeah, it was definitely one of the better atmospheres. I think the best atmosphere that I've ever been to there at that stadium. I'll give you a list of three. 2013 when they played Alabama the second time, when Johnny Manziel's last year there, after they beat them the year before, and it was 49-42 at Kyle Field. The stadium hadn't been renovated yet. It still only held 82,000. There was probably 88, 90 in the building, but still probably the craziest, loudest game I've ever been to there. LSU in 2018, which was a 7 overtime game, definitely ranks up there. And then last week against LSU, really, really good. I will say this, from an atmosphere standpoint, A&M has done a really good job of keeping the crowd engaged in a way that, like, they have the power and the entrance of the start, which is great. But when they play Mo Bamba, I think that stadium is louder than I've ever heard anything in my life. The press box shakes at an immense level when they start playing that, and the fans go nuts. But I'll also say this, is that was a statement win for that program. I think they needed a big signature win after losing the Notre Dame game to start the season. I think they needed a big win to kind of stamp themselves as serious as a big-time team. And that was a really big one for Mike Elko, a really big one especially when you consider that they made the change at quarterback in a tough spot. Like, you don't want to move away from your guy who you believe in, but you also got to win the game. And I thought it was a shrewd move to do. It turned out to be the right move. And I would be surprised if it was anybody but Marcel Reed on Saturday when they play South Carolina.
Yeah, is that just a little bit of gamesmanship there? I mean, they do seem to feel good about either guy.
Yeah, I think there is some gamesmanship, but I do think there are pros and cons to both. It's clear that I think when Marcel's in the game, the run game is just different because the defense has to account for him in the run game. And so that changes the math for a defensive front, and it makes the team more vulnerable. However, they have got to get better as a team passing the ball downfield. They've got to get more consistent. Receivers have got to do a better job of getting open. And we've seen what it looks like at its peak, and that was against Missouri. Connor Wegman looked better against Missouri than I had ever seen him in his 3-year career there. And if they can get that Connor Wegman, then it's worth starting him. But he has not proven this year that we're going to get that Connor Wegman every week. He's also had the injuries that he dealt with. I don't know if that's still an issue or not, but that certainly was an issue for the first few weeks of the season. So that's to say that I don't think Wegman is somebody you just dump and just say, okay, we're moving on to Marcel Reed and Wegman's career here is over. I still think he has an asset to that team because of his throwing ability, because when he is comfortable and when he is at his best, he makes them a really dangerous offense. The problem is, and Mike Elko alluded to this on Monday, is that it seems like everything is sped up with Connor when he's in the pocket. He's going through his reads too fast. Everything just seems to be moving. He may be bailing on the pocket too quickly. And so when your processing is going faster than it should be, then you're not going to be effective and you're not going to be efficient in the passing game. And I think with Marcel, you could tell that things were a little bit slower. They only threw the ball 2 times when he was in there, and they're going to have a run-heavy game plan, I think, if he starts. But that's something you have to consider, because if you're going to have to throw the ball to beat a team, the question is, can Marcel Reed do it?
Yeah, that's a big question. And A&M has been through this as a university many times, where the backup quarterback comes in and does something, and then they're kind of confused about what the future for that position is. Sam, elsewhere, Big 12-wise, the big game this week in the Big 12, I think the biggest one is not Tech and Iowa State. I think it's Baylor and TCU because of the implications for both those teams that have, after rocky starts, righted the ship in a lot of ways. And I think maybe not for TCU as much, but I think for this Baylor team, a loss to TCU would take a lot of the wind out of their sails that they've built up over the last 2 games.
no doubt. This is a game that the winner is going to come out feeling really good because you will have won 3 in a row, and you'll feel like, okay, we weathered the storm, we righted the ship, the season is not over, we're still moving in the right direction. If you lose, I think more so for Baylor than for TCU, but I think it applies to both. If you lose, then some of those feelings that you had a month ago when things were going really wrong start to creep back up again. If you're TCU, then I think you look at it and you start asking questions about Sonny Dykes again. I still don't believe that we're at the point that he's on the hot seat enough to where the level that Dave Aranda is, and that Sunday would make a change after this season. I don't think we're at that point. I don't think we'll reach that point this year, unless they were to lose the rest of the year. Baylor, on the other hand, we know that Aranda's job security has been tenuous. Getting those 2 wins, I think, has helped them a lot. If you get this one and you're 1 game away from bowl eligibility, I think you got to feel really good about it. If you don't, and you're looking at 4 and 5, and then trying to ask the question, can we get to the postseason at the end of this thing? I think it makes it a little more tenuous. I will say this: I do like what I've seen offensively from Baylor and how much more effective they've been. I love what I've seen from Sawyer Robertson. I love how much he fits in that offense with Jake Spavital. I think it's a more natural fit. And I think those guys play for Sawyer. I think you can tell there's a leadership quality there that exists, and I think people really go to war for that guy. And that it sometimes it is that simple, that changing the quarterback makes all the difference. And mentality across the offense, and if the offense is good, then the defense starts feeding off of it. And I think that in some ways, I think that's applied to the situation from Baylor. And I think having it at home with the 2013 teams being on it and all the positive vibes are going to be around, I think this is a chance for Baylor to really take advantage of it. And if they don't, then it'll be a big letdown.
Tech and Iowa State. Tech, 2-game skid. Not the team or the place you want to go to get off of a skid. UCF played maybe their best game of the year in weeks and still lost in Ames. Tech's defense has not been good. They gave the game away last week to TCU. They really had them, and in the fourth quarter in a shot where they could put them away. Didn't do it. And then, of course, the issues this week, you can feel the stress bubbling over. But they can still score. And Baron Morton's back. I still would not pick them to beat Iowa State because Iowa State's just been so good. But is this one where Iowa State has to be on full alert because they've gotten scared a couple times already?
Yeah, I would still put them on full alert because Texas Tech, I think, has the highest scoring offense in the Big 12 right now. Mm-hmm. And they can still score points. Even though their defense has been bad, they can still score with just about anybody in this league. I think Baron Morton's health is going to factor into that somewhat. It sounds like mostly soreness, no structural damage. I think they're optimistic about him playing on Saturday. I think even ESPN reported that he was going to start. So I think this offense is still dangerous. And Iowa State does have – this is not a team that is going to out-talent you on a week-to-week basis. Matt Campbell likes to use the term winning on the margins, and that's what Iowa State has to be as a program. I mean, they had to get a last-second drive and get a stop at the end of that game to beat UCF. They had to pull out that close one against Iowa earlier this year. They were up only 3-0 against Houston at halftime on the road. This is not a team that's going to come out and just put 40 on you, in the first 2.5 quarters. So I do think they need to be on high alert. That said, their defense is what their defense is. John Haycock is one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. Iowa State is one of the best defenses in the nation. If they assert their will defensively early, I think they can suffocate Texas Tech and frustrate them to the point to where it doesn't end up being too much of a threat.
Yeah. That will be very, very interesting. Sam, do you feel that there's any outside of Aranda, and then you mentioned Sonny Dykes, do you think that maybe Gus Malzahn, is there anybody else who could be under the gun a little bit here?
Yeah, I can see I saw a little bit of chatter about Gus. I'm still not all the way there yet, just because I thought they were of the 4 newcomers last year. I thought they were the best of the bunch, and it's a really tall task to go from Group of 5 conference to Power 5. Let's just be honest. It's not easy to do, and I think that program, to me, when I watch them, I know they haven't played one. I think some of that has to do with the quarterback. who they ended. Starting KJ Jefferson didn't work out very well. Took them a minute to make a change there. I still think from a talent standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, I still think they've done a really good job. And obviously losing 5 in a row is a red flag. But I wouldn't say that I'd put him on the hot seat to the point that he needs to be run out or anything like that. I still would like to give him some time because this is a different program than what we're thinking when they were in the Group of 5 and when they were in the American. This is a different situation when you're in the Big 12. You're still growing into this. And so I'm not ready to be super alarmed just yet. And I still think his track record as a coach, especially if you go back to his days at Auburn, I still think it still speaks for itself.
Last thing, Sam, do you think Texas got their bye week at the right time, given the last couple weeks and then getting, a charge put into them by Vanderbilt?
No doubt at all. I think they needed it. They needed it from a health standpoint too. Isaiah Bond had been nicked up a little bit. Andrew Makuba had been nicked up, and so that's a couple of key players. Makuba's been really good in the secondary for him. Bond, obviously, probably their most explosive receiver of the bunch. Getting those guys healed up, and I think Quentin Ewers probably needs a little bit of time too. He looked a lot better against Vanderbilt, but I still wonder how healthy he was coming back. You certainly the first 2 starts after he came back, the first early going, it didn't look terrific, and so I think that extra time for him to just take care of his body and get to full strength is important. But yeah, I think it's a really good time for them to refocus for the stretch run because they're going to have some tough games. I mean, I know they've got Florida next week. I know Florida's not what they used to be, but it's still an SEC team. It's still going to be, I think, a little bit of a challenge. And then, of course, they've got the one at A&M at the end of the year. They're going to need a lot of juice. And as Steve Sarkisian said earlier this week, this is a team that hopes to play on January 20th. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking that we're on November 1st, that's still 2.5 months away. That's a long time to be playing. And so I think this break will help. And if they can go through and take care of business the next 4 weeks, get into the SEC championship, then you get that break before the playoff, then, that will be super timely as well. But I think this is a team that's still very good. I still have a few questions. I want to see them be more efficient offensively. I want to see them be a little bit more consistent running the ball. But to me, I still think they're a top 5, top 10 team without question. And I'll be interested to see if they go into that A&M game 10-1, and if they do, is A&M 10-1. And buddy, if we go into that game with both,
yeah, that's gonna be insane, Sam. And Sam, what game you at this week?
I am not at a game. I am at home this weekend, and I'll actually be I'll be on our desk editing and reading stories and making sure everybody's got clean copies. So I'm on the other side of the aisle this week.
Oh, well, congratulations. Enjoy your week at home. I was kind of hoping we'd see a Baylor TCU, but
I thought, I would have liked to, but we have a couple editors who are out this weekend. They need some extra help on the desk, and I've been doing that a little bit this year. So I said, hey, the week that Texas is on the road, Texas is off and Texas A&M's on the road. If they needed extra help, I was happy to do it. So I'm trying to be a team player here.
Well, thank you so much, Sam. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
All right. From one fantastic guest to another, and this is not my fault, Grayson. This was Sam's fault. He had to push us back 5 minutes. So here we go. Grayson Grundhaver, SicEm365.com. Grayson, this is of the last few years. Obviously the 19 win was important. But the 21 win. Well, anyway, Baylor and TCU, this is a crazy important game for both sides in a lot of different ways. This isn't playoff or anything like this, but this is a season, I don't want to say changing win, but like a momentum continuing win for either one of them. There's a lot of nostalgia being thrown all over this thing. There's going to be a lot of tension in the building just because of the rivalry. But I do think for Baylor and for Dave Aranda, this one could be maybe like a double bonus in Mario, like where you hit it and you catch the star. This might be that because it's a rivalry game and it's another win that gets him closer to that bowl game, which then can maybe allow him to relax a little bit and focus on the last 3 games of the season.
Definitely. It's been kind of interesting because Baylor and TCU have played in some pretty important games. Like when you go back and look at it, 2019 was obviously a very important triple overtime win for Baylor. Then you fast forward to 2021, and it's like, Baylor wins that game against TCU, and they're probably in the college football playoff, or at least right there in contention for it. Unable to come up with the win there. And then, of course, in 2022, Baylor had their chance to get a little bit of redemption against TCU and knock them potentially out of the college football playoff. But of course, it didn't happen. And that's kind of been the story, right, of this matchup, is just, Baylor being close a few times, losing, Baylor getting blown out a few times against TCU. And, all in all, they have one win since that 61-58 win back in 2014. So now looking to this one, you're exactly right. I mean, it's very important for both sides. And I think from a momentum standpoint, it's very important, but also from the standpoint of, look at these two teams' schedules going forward. They both have a lot of winnable games coming up. So, if TCU finds a way to win this game, they could be looking at, 8-9, maybe with a bowl game, of potentially a 10-win season. And for Baylor, 7-8 wins definitely on the table if they're able to win this game. So yeah, you're exactly right. This could be one of those that springboards one of the teams into a really nice finish to the season. And then on the other hand, the team that loses might be feeling like they've lost some momentum and might not be able to recapture some of that midseason magic that both of them currently have.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I don't expect, Grayson, that defense is really going to be like that much of a thing here. It's going to be who can make the key stops, not who can shut somebody down, because these are both offenses that are kind of humming right now, or do when they this kind of matchup kind of plays itself to that. It's going to be about sacks and turnovers and not necessarily yardage. Like who can get a sack and keep a field goal, touchdown to be a field goal. All of those things are going to play in. How do you see the game playing out?
Right. I think that there will be a lot of points scored. The way that I kind of envision this going, though, is I think that based on the way TCU's played this year, they have 4 games where they've turned the ball over 3 or more times. Like, that is who they are. That is in their DNA. I think they're going to come into McLean Stadium and they're going to turn the ball over a couple times, or at least give Baylor some chances at converting on some turnovers. Baylor's done a pretty good job of taking care of the football, haven't done a great job at taking the ball away. So this is kind of going to be one of those matchups where they're going to have opportunities and they really have to take advantage of them. I think if they get a couple of them or enough of them, I think that will hold down the TCU offense just enough to where maybe they can build a little bit of a lead. But I think in general, you're right. The mindset going into this is, Baylor's probably going to be able to move the football quite a bit in this game, should be able to run the ball at a very high level. We've seen the last 2 weeks, they faced the worst run defense and then a run defense that is a little bit better than TCU's in Tex. And Baylor's had a lot of success, averaging 300 yards rushing per game these last 2 weeks. And they've had multiple touchdowns in both games on the ground as well. So feel pretty good that they're going to have success there. I feel pretty good that Josh Hoover's probably going to throw for 300 yards in this game. The question is, how many turnovers does he have? That's pretty much the question every single week for them. But they have a lot of really talented receivers, and it's going to be hard to keep them from moving the football. So yeah, it's going to come down to a few factors: turnovers, who produces in the red zone, who takes advantage of those chances and converts, those field positions into touchdowns instead of field goals is going to be really important in this one. But it should be a fun one. Yeah, I agree. Both offenses seem to have the edge. I just think Baylor's defense is going to be a little bit more ready for what TCU has than TCU's defense versus Baylor's offense.
Grayson, last week I had you on here, and I think or a couple weeks ago I said they need to find like one running back and then piece the other guys in. And there was maybe Bryson Washington against Tech. Then last week, Dawson Pendergrass, who nickname I would like to be the Grass Sassin. If we can get that going, you can add it. You can just credit me. But it is like I've been kind of proven wrong there. They've just got – they've got 2 guys in particular, and maybe throw in Richard Reese in there. We haven't seen Dominic Richardson in a lot of time because he's been injured, but they can kind of play the hot hand in this offense now, can't they?
They definitely can. And that was actually, I don't know if I'm going to call it a turning point, but I did feel like the way they were running the football with Bryson was very much, 3 yards here, 4 yards here, 2 yards here. He wasn't doing a great job of letting his blocks set up, but he was getting positive yardage. He ran fine, but once Pendergrass got in the game, you could tell his patience, his vision were really important. He allowed the blocks to get set up. He allowed the offensive line to get to the second level and attack linebackers. He forced the Oklahoma State linebackers to read the gap correctly, which they haven't done all year since they lost Nick Martin. And it was huge for this Baylor offense because, I mean, he was literally getting to the second level almost every time he got the football. And that was because of his patience as a running back. And Richard Reese even sprang a couple because of that patience as well. I do think it is a hot hand approach, but I also think, they got quality running backs. And you mentioned we haven't really seen Dominic Richardson much at all. Has been banged up pretty much all year, had the fumble against Colorado, and has just been hurt for a while now. And then you also add in the fact that Sawyer Robertson's ran so well. So they got so many options in this run game, and I think it's made them really difficult to defend. And then you add in the fact that Sawyer's been throwing the ball so well to his receivers that, it makes them, very versatile. And I think that's really tough to defend in this league, especially if you don't have an elite defense, which Baylor basically faced all of those in the first half of the year.
Yeah, they did. They played all the good defenses first part of the year, and now they're getting to the home stretch of their schedule. Grayson, defensively, a guy that you and I haven't talked about in the last couple of weeks, but we need to, is Steve Linton. I mean, he was suspended for a game. Since that moment on, he's been playing with a chip on his shoulder, particularly last week. You would have thought that Alan Bowman stole his lunch money. He was out for blood and just all over the field. And Texas Tech saw a lot of talent in him, and it didn't work out there. What has made the light go on finally for Steve Linton?
I think a lot of it is just buying in. Right. I mean, he went to Texas Tech and had his ups and downs. Of course, his biggest up that season was 3 sacks against Baylor. Lucky for the Bears. Right. And so he had a great performance that night, and he played really well in that Tech game and then played really well in the Oklahoma State game as well. I think it's just, when you completely buy into everything you're being asked to do, good things happen. And Caleb Collins was actually on with Colt and I on the Inside Baylor Sports podcast, and he talked about, just that buy-in, right? Saying, hey, you know what? I'm good dropping into coverage. I'm good with it at times. I'm good with, doing what you ask of me. But also, Caleb also said, a big thing about the guys that he likes as pass rushers are guys who say, I want a pass rush. I'll do all the things that you ask for, but at the end of the day, I want opportunities to get after the quarterback. And that's exactly what Steve Linton is. And I think the biggest thing for me, though, watching him, they didn't really do a great job of at Tech, is he's really holding up well against the run, which was the biggest concern. He's gotten a couple tackles for loss in these games. He's, playing with his hair on fire. He's playing fast. It doesn't look like he's thinking. And I think all of that is so huge for a guy that's as athletic as he is. And so, yeah, I think that light bulb is really turning on. He's making a lot of plays, and he's going to be a very important player in this matchup. As we know, TCU does not run the football well. I don't think Baylor's going to really respect them in the run game. And so, therefore, I think some of these guys, Garmin Randolph, Steve Linton, Jackie Marshall, are going to kind of be pinning their ears back and trying to get after Josh Hoover and trying to make his life a little bit miserable and try to just create some havoc in the backfield, because Hoover's really struggled when that has happened.
Yeah, he really has. He's the turnover machine. Again, that's the difference. Who's going to create those turnovers? Sawyer Robertson hasn't been immune to that. Josh Hoover is the most turnover-prone quarterback in the country as we stand right now. Sawyer Robertson's been better over the last month maybe than Josh Hoover has. So, again, this is going to come down on defense to who makes those plays and who can, in my opinion, build enough of a league to give their defense confidence that it's not completely on them to make, that one stop. If they can, say, okay, we make one stop, we don't have to make 3 stops, I think that will help out here.
Definitely. That'll be a big part of it. And, I think, gaining momentum in this matchup is going to be really key. These two teams, I think, feed kind of off that momentum. And I think when things go good, both have really shown the ability to kind of snowball on the other team. But then you look at, when things go bad, they can kind of go really bad. And it almost happened to TCU last week, but they were able to recapture some of that momentum against Texas Tech and find a way to win that game. But Baylor, the last couple weeks, it's just like this momentum that they've been gaining, even within the matchups, within the games, it's really propelled them to kind of eventually pulling away from the teams that they've been playing. And so I'm curious if that happens in this matchup. Obviously for Baylor, there's a lot going into this game, from just, the outside perspective, when you look at the 2013, 2014 teams being honored, the ceremony that's going to happen, the celebration that's going to happen, and then, a blackout game, the first official one since 2014 or 2016, I guess. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since they've been able to, have this moment. And so now it's just about, can this team get ready for that moment and live up to the hype and play up to that moment against a team they frankly have not had any success against, really, and have been totally dominated by over the last decade. And Baylor's going to have to recapture some of that, and they got a great opportunity to do it in front of what should be the best crowd of the season. And honestly, it better be the best crowd of the season if Baylor fans, and if Baylor wants this game to be a win and wants to beat TCU, it better be the best environment that Baylor has all year.
Yeah. Look, what else? What other kind of game do you want than this one right here? All the marbles against your biggest rival. Grayson, what is something you are maybe looking for in this game that's not maybe out on the surface that people should look for?
I think that the way that Sawyer Robertson is playing right now is something that I know people have talked about it, but like the level that he's playing at, when you look at QBR is not the greatest metric in the world, but it does assess how you're performing game in and game out. And he's just been so consistent in that regard. And when you watch him play, there's just a different feeling about this team and a different momentum about them, and the trust he has with his receivers. And I think you're starting to see these receivers making more plays, right? That Ashton Hawkins play last week. And, guys just seem to be more confident and more ready as this season has gone on. And I think that's a huge credit to Sawyer. And while that may be a big storyline going in, I think a lot of people feel like TCU's pass defense is, going to hold up really well in this game and, be their strongest side. But I truthfully think that Baylor's going to kind of be able to dictate the tempo and kind of do a little bit of whatever they want at times in this game. And that's because of Sawyer Robertson and this run game and this offensive line coming together. I think it just truly is about that for this offense, the momentum that they're gaining. It's really fascinating to watch. It's not very often that you see an offense completely shift from one half of the season to the next. But when you're not having to play the top three defenses in the Big 12 consistently over those first few weeks, you can kind of see why they probably struggled early on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Grayson, do you want to give a score prediction, or do you want to make people go to the website?
No, I'll give my score prediction. Okay. So I think my final post that I went with was, 41-30. I think that's what I went with. So 11-point win for Baylor. Either way, I think it's going to be a two-score game. So whether you want to say that's, 10, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that range, I think is what Baylor's going to win by.
Could be 9.
9-2. Yeah, 9 as well. So somewhere in that range, two-score win for Baylor. I think the turnovers are going to be a huge problem for TCU. I think Baylor's offense is going to score a lot. And frankly, I think it could be a game where Baylor's up by 3 scores for some of this game, and TCU kind of just tacks on, not garbage time touchdowns, but, some kind of later touchdowns that maybe don't matter as much to in the grand scheme of the game. I just think that's the way this is going to play out. I think there's going to be a great electricity in the building. I think Baylor's going to start fast in front of what's going to be a great crowd, a great environment, a environment that truly is ready to explode, I think, because of the 2013, 2014 teams. I mean, people forget how loved those teams are. I mean, Baylor fans truly do love those teams. I think people will be at that game just for that. And you get a real opportunity to show them, this is the new Baylor football. This is us trying to get back to the success that we had during that time period. And so, again, I think there's just going to be a lot of energy in the building. I think Baylor's going to put together a very complete performance, and TCU's turnovers are going to, I think, really hurt them at the end of the day.
All right. Grayson Grudehafer, SIGM365.com. Subscribe, read them. When we come back, Peyton Soysher, rankingsrightnow.com. look, it's Amanda's Christmas. My wife, we're decorating for Christmas. This week is Peyton's Christmas because this is the first week. This is like Black Friday for rankings. That's what this week is. That's what it is. Peyton's up next. This is 365 Sports.
Now been a part of about, 5 or 6, 7 auctions, live auctions online. TexasBeefHouse.com. Their Angus cattle, the ranch just outside of Tyler, the Wagyu beef that they make available. And the best part of it is you get to buy whatever you want for how much you want to pay each month, sometimes once or twice in this month in October, 3 live auctions. So I sent Aaron Duvall and Samantha Duvall this text. I've learned the auction game. Finally wore somebody else out to get some great-looking ribeyes and fillets. And Aaron Duvall responded, the owner of TexasBeefHouse.com and the Duvall Ranch. I heard you were after them. Congratulations. Appreciate all you do for our company. It's easy. TexasBeefHouse.com is fantastic. Farm-raised from start to finish. Angus cattle, Wagyu beef, and it's not just the steaks, but brisket and tri-tip and roast, hamburger patties. And each auction provides some other opportunity for you to get what you want and pay what you want. Not a sticker that is on a package of steaks or whatever inside of a store. I was so excited. I got an immediate text that said, and if anyone tried to outbid me, I would know. And then I got an immediate text and then an email. Paid. Bid on Beef is who runs the live auctions for TexasBeefHouse.com. Get what you want and pay what you want. And if the price gets too high in an auction, walk away. Get it next time at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford. Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Peyton Soysher, rankingsrightnow.com. Oh, what a fun segment each and every week that we have. And Peyton, you and I said this earlier, but we are going to start doing some college football playoff rankings things starting on Monday. We'll have a couple that will kind of preview it, and then a couple that will react to it.
Yep.
Or maybe react to what happened this weekend, so you can preview the rankings, and then we'll figure out. It'll change, it'll morph, it'll grow.
There's no shortage of stuff to discuss every week.
Yes, you sent me a treasure trove of information last night. Watch the video, all of that. So let's go through this with me like I'm 5, because this was a lot of info. The biggest thing is Notre Dame, and you can share the screen, but Notre Dame at number 2 for some of your projected rankings, and that would be above several teams that aren't undefeated, and we're running out of undefeated teams. It's getting down to the wire. But you have Notre Dame in one projection at number 2, Miami, who is undefeated all the way down at 10.
Correct. Okay, so like you said, there's a lot to discuss, and let's take it slowly at first. So one of the things that when I was playing around with these optimizations and these algorithms, and I was switching over from the AP over to the playoff committee, I didn't realize how used to seeing the AP rankings and taking them for face value of this is it, right? This is what we expect. This is the new situation. So before we get to the situation you just talked about, if we use the playoff committee rankings algorithm, but still base it upon the latest AP poll, this is what we look like. And it makes sense if you take the AP poll into context, right? Things are moving not nearly as dramatic as the AP poll, which was something that was driving me crazy, right? We have things that are playing nicely, teams that look right. If we get rid of any AP poll context and say, just give me the algorithm using the same AP preseason top 25, and just never reference the AP poll again, we run into this situation. And this is where things start to get really, really, really interesting, eyebrow raising, scratching your head of what in the world is going on. But as you mentioned right here, you have Notre Dame playing around at number 2 in the latest algorithm. Now, initially when I thought this, I said, oh no, like, there's a bug in my code. Something's wrong here. But if you take a look at Notre Dame's schedule right here, if you get rid of this Northern Illinois loss, which no one can seem to forget because it's one of the highlights of the 2024 season, right? If we think of all of the biggest games, this one comes to mind, right? No one expected this. They beat number 20 Texas A&M at the time, 15 Louisville. Georgia Tech has been in and out of the rankings all season. Navy, they just dominated, right? Maybe this algorithm is saying that was so long ago, it's not relevant anymore. You don't need to worry about this, right? This team right now, we think could be the number 2 team in the country. And based off of the surrounding teams in the top 10, right? Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, you can make the argument of, okay, well, it's not like everything is wacky. It's just there's an outlier in here that is very, very particular of what we're thinking. And the next thing that I kind of jumped to was, okay, well, what about Clemson? Because Clemson, they have one loss on the year. It was the first game of the year to Georgia, who was number 1 at the time, right? They got blown out. If we look at their schedule, why wouldn't they be at the top of the list either? Well, look at who they've played. Appalachian State, NC State, Stanford, Florida State, Wake Forest, Virginia. These teams have not been remotely close to the top 25. I think NC State started the first 2 or 3 weeks within the top 25, but right at the bottom of it. No one else has had a good season. So we've talked about this before on the show. Everything about rankings is about who you played and when you played them, right? If Clemson maybe would have had Florida State at game 2, game 3, when no one was really seeing the writing on the wall, all apologies to you, Paul.
Yeah.
You might be saying, okay, they might be more competitive, but they're getting these teams at points in the in the timeline where people are shaking their head saying that's not a high quality team. They finally play Louisville, and we're going to get a much better understanding of where they are. But as of right now, there's a lot of ones over here that I don't think are going to be highly accurate, but there's enough in here that has a good basis to say, okay, the right teams are in here, but the order is very, very interesting.
Yeah, that is so true, Peyton. I mean, like looking at these, it is very, very interesting. So now when you switched it up and Notre Dame went to number 8, which makes a lot more sense to me. What did you do to change the results there?
So this is, if you see right here, it's rankingsrightnow.com. So if you go to the website, rankingsrightnow.com, this is what you'll see, right? This is just based off of the using the AP poll as context to help drive these predictive rankings. If you see right here, I have a very funny URL right here, which is just a local development server that I have on my computer. So I'm saying I'm playing around with some stuff. I don't want to update the production code. Let me just do this off on the side with all of the structure, but let me make one tweak. And, when we move into, this is the fun week, as you mentioned leading into this, right? This is Christmas. This is when we see how close is this algorithm going to be that's been in the dark forever. So, I just wanted to see if you get rid of the context, which starting next week we will, right? This algorithm will just forget all of the AP poll context because we will have the rankings from the playoff committee, and that will realign itself, and now we're good to go moving forward. But now we're in this weird limbo, very similar to like week 2 of the AP poll, where you don't really know where anybody else is. So we don't know what this poll is thinking. We have algorithms that are trained on their historical voting patterns, and which includes last year, crazy scenarios like that we saw for Florida State not getting into the college football playoff. But we take all of that context and say, this is the algorithm that is closest that we have right now to making these predictions. So this is just saying pound for pound, not taking anything else into account. What should we expect here?
Down the list, Pitt and SMU right next to each other. Like that one jumps out at me because they do play this week. So whatever happens in that game, they're still locked at the hip, when it comes to the playoff rankings. Now, what they need is to get, to win the ACC, really, to get in the playoff. Is there anybody in here that you think that you saw, you put the numbers in and go, oh, wow, this really isn't going to, like, they really need some help to make sure that they get in this thing?
If we take a look right in here, LSU all the way down to 25 was surprising to me. That was that based off how they've played lately. Now they lost their last game, but Boise State, I don't know if anyone is really gassed up about their Heisman candidate, but I don't know why. Once again, it's about one of these things where you take into the schedule. They've lost a couple big games. They've lost games to Oregon, right? Like
just to Oregon. That's the only loss that they have is to Oregon, and they played Oregon better than anybody in the country has played Oregon.
By far. But once again, a million years ago, right? Like, it's the same way it's the same reason to say, well, Oregon shouldn't be number 1 because they didn't play Boise very hard. And what was it, Idaho, that they really struggled against? No, they shouldn't be number 1. I think everyone right now would say Oregon's number 1 for sure. The biggest game by far, which I think is going to have really big implications, is this Penn State-Ohio State game. If we play with the what-if simulation tool real quick, and let me go ahead and get out of the top 25. But if we play around with this game and we just flip the score, right? And we'll make this 22 and make this 24. Confirm it. We're on the right algorithm that we care about. Let's go ahead and run the simulation. What we're going to see is a little bit of a flip-flop, but there's a lot of interesting context that's coming in. Penn State at number 1. Now they're leading the pack, right? They pass Oregon. Ohio State's at number 5. So that was one of the first things that you kind of mentioned when I was thinking about, do you put a 2-loss Ohio State in the top 10 when if they were to lose this game, and as a reminder, we're in the simulation, they lose by 2. To Oregon, they lost by 1. So that's a combined 3-point loss to the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams. That's pretty much saying they're even, right? I would say everyone, and by the way, those are both road losses by 1 and by 2. So I think that everyone's saying, okay, on a neutral field, Ohio State is up there with 1, 2, and 3. So you have that situation where there's a little bit of movement, but really there's a couple, like Army might sneak in there. You have Tennessee's down to 17, which I thought was surprising. Like, there's so many different things that are really, really confusing. But that's because we've been looking at the AP poll this whole time. And when the AP poll says Tennessee is, what is Tennessee? Tennessee is 7, and you see a 17, you say, well, that's not even remotely close. But Texas A&M at 13, BYU at 11, Miami, Indiana at 9, where right now the AP poll has Indiana at 13. I would take Indiana at 9. Do I take Ole Miss at 7? No, I don't think so. So there's little blips here and there where you're kind of like, that might make a really interesting argument. And who really knows what this panel is taking into account when they're making these valuations to say Ole Miss has had a couple of really tough games. Alabama has still just blew out Mizzou, even though Mizzou was on a backup quarterback, right? Missouri at 15, probably too high, right? There's all these. Michigan is still in the conversation here. I don't know exactly what to make of this. It will be very interesting to have it all laid out and say, wow, this was nowhere even close, or there were a couple of bold predictions in here that actually led to some really interesting insights that we can look back and say, wow, that was a really big play right there. And it had significant playoff implications before anyone even knew it.
Yeah. So what other games this week are you looking at that could really genuinely affect this? Because Pitt and SMU, we saw that doesn't really change much. We've got a lot of, it's like Texas is off this week, so there's going to be some teams that are sitting and watching. But who do you think kind of affects this week? Is it A&M and South Carolina? A&M did they need style points in that one, or are they okay because they're an SEC team?
I think they're okay because they're an SEC team, to be honest. They have the resume now, right? Once again, they have a loss against Notre Dame early in the year. South Carolina's played a lot of teams really closely. Let's just have South Carolina winning this 27-23, and let's go ahead and run this. And then there's one other game that I think has enormous implications and why I'm very curious and why people aren't talking about it enough. But right here, what was the game just to remind everyone, Texas A&M and South Carolina. If you look at A&M, they're dropping down a bunch to number 23 in the non-AP influenced predictions here. So we can do the same thing over here and see where the AP influenced algorithm has them. Let's just go ahead and go over to the what if simulation real quick. And let's do the same exact change. But one game that is really, really particular to me, and mostly just because I'm the only one like spinning my head over here thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe what's going on over here. Texas A&M down to 19. So you have 18 or you have 23 over here, 19 over here. I don't know if A&M will be able to make up that much ground with only a few games left going into the year to consider themselves playoff eligible there. That might be the knockout punch. Clemson and Louisville is enormous. Clemson does not have a legitimate win on their schedule right now. They have a bunch of uncontested layups. If they don't have a major win here, I don't see how you can have a 2-loss Clemson team in a significant position for the playoff committee to be in those top 12 teams. And who would be left in the ACC?
Well, I mean, Pitt, SMU, Miami.
I always forget that SMU is still in the ACC. It still makes me giggle. So if Clemson gets knocked out against Louisville, and Louisville's all their losses this year, let's go ahead and just take a look at their schedule. All their losses are legit losses. 7 points to Notre Dame, 7 points to SMU, 7 points to Miami. They can play. So they're 3 touchdowns away from being in a completely different spot. This will be very interesting for them to face off with Clemson, and it could be the end of Clemson's run for being considered a elite team in this 2024 season, even though they've been on fire lately.
Yeah. This is wild. So how will you take information in this week, and then Tuesday when you get that info, how does that change? I know it's not going to change everything you do, but it's going to inform some math you might have to change, right?
Yes. So let's get really under the hood here. You want to see how the engine's running. So you have all of these teams that are at the bottom of the list, right? Let's just say Kent State is predicted to be the last and worst team next to Kennesaw State. I don't think anyone's arguing these bottom 5 if you've been following college football this year. But a lot of these teams are all fighting for different positions. The algorithm is focused on this AP, I need to stop getting used to saying that, the playoff committee top 25. Once all the games have happened, we'll have our final predictions. We'll have our newsletter, our YouTube video, all the different things. We'll blast it all out. Starting next week, we'll go ahead and talk as well there. The algorithm is looking at the top 25. What's also interesting is that a lot of people love to argue with me on social media when one team has like 2 AP votes and say, oh, well, they're ranked 31st. Yeah, sure, I guess. But the playoff committee only releases their top 25, hard stop, that's it. They don't give you points. They don't tell you who's close, whereas there's a gap. Is there a significant gap between 8 and 9, or are they neck and neck right next to each other? We don't know. So the algorithm is going to readjust to the top 25, keep the same algorithm, and then we just move forward. So the only reason why this one can be so wacky is because Notre Dame could be 18 for all we know. But for what they've done historically in the past, the closest prediction that we can come to that also takes into account all of the future weeks that have happened in previous years, we're sitting with Notre Dame at number 2. So if Notre Dame really goes down to 6, Notre Dame moves to 6. Everything readjusts. The algorithm stays the same, but it now has a new starting point to go off of to make even more accurate predictions moving forward.
Wow. By the way, the fact that Alabama would be at 8 in any scenario in this thing is total nonsense. Total nonsense.
Once again, you just have those weird ones. Same thing. Ole Miss and Alabama right next to each other was a eye roll.
I didn't even see Ole Miss. It's like I blocked them out of my vision. I didn't even see Ole Miss.
Right.
No, neither of them belong in that
Once
spot.
again, where is it? Like Ole Miss is at 15 right now with the AP based one. If we look at Alabama, right? If that Vanderbilt one really hurts them for sure. I think it's the algorithm saying 34-0 to a ranked Missouri team. And look at where Missouri is in this non-AP influenced algorithm. They're sitting at 15 after moving down 2 slots. So you can look at the different weeks here. Mizzou was at 8 at week 9. And then they lost and they dropped down 5 slots. So I think what is really happening is this algorithm is saying, oh my gosh, Alabama just destroyed this team that we valued highly. But we kind of know the context that really was surrounding that game. And so we don't value that game. The algorithm does, but we as humans are saying, no. That wasn't a real Mizzou team. That was a secondary quarterback. That was not what we were expecting. So if you get rid of, that was at Tennessee, right? Tennessee on the road losing by 7, a highly a competitive team. Vanderbilt is one that definitely is going to haunt them if they don't get into this year. But I think Vanderbilt is now having a lot more respect, even after what they did to Texas. Like, I don't know. I can only make predictions. That's the lame part about being a machine learning or a data scientist. I can only make the predictions, and hopefully the algorithm gives us a little bit of fun insight, but definitely makes you wonder when you look at some of these teams like Miami down to 10. Hey man, I would have thought they would have been a little bit more higher, and you have Alabama saying I thought they would have been a little bit lower.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Peyton, enjoy the weekend. You're going to need to crack a couple beers, I'm sure, to get through it all. We'll figure it out. But I will talk to you. You will see him on the Triple Option channel on Monday with some short. Like, they're not going to be long. We're not going to inundate you with numbers. Peyton's going to pick out important things to look at. We're going to hit it hard, and then you'll see Peyton on the Triple Option channel on Monday. Of course, go to Rankings Right Now. You have a YouTube channel as well, there on Rankings Right Now. So this is
if you want to nerd out, come to the YouTube channel, read the newsletter. And super excited to be on Triple Option, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
This is what you call in the biz a collab. Yeah, this is a collab. This is like Mr. Beast and another person who has less followers but still is popular like Mr. Beast. I'm 44. I'm lucky I even know who he is. So, yeah, that's what this is like. Peyton, we'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Peyton Soysher, Rankings Right Now. Next up, we've got Kenneth Davis, Evan Abrams, and Josh Neighbors and the top 5. That's all coming up right after this on 365 Sports.
It is homecoming weekend. Baylor University hosting Oklahoma State Saturday afternoon, 2:30 at McLean Stadium. But there's a lot more going on than just the game on Saturday, and especially at the Baylor Club, located inside McLean Stadium. Kick off your homecoming weekend today and get hyped for the big game. Epic club table, the Baylor Spirit Squad, and live music by Trevor Hickok. Don't miss on the ultimate pregame party. That's where the fun begins on Friday from 5:30 until 8:30. Adults $30, kids $5 to $12.15. The menu. Whew, man, have they got themselves something going. Great chefs, great cuisine. Check out the new menu, filled with exciting dishes, delicious twist on classic favorites. Come taste what is new. Don't miss the perfect way to wrap up the homecoming week. Join the Baylor Club for the Bear Brunch on Sunday after the homecoming game. Bring the family, enjoy a delicious spread to end the week at a high note. Brunch for everyone will be, of course, talking about. Sunday, that's from 10:30 until 1:30. Adults $35, kids $17. McLean Stadium, a perfect spot to relax and refuel after the homecoming parade. Get ready for the game. Complimentary entrees for you and 2 guests. Additional guests for just $10 each. Food and drink tickets will be available. That's from 11:30 up until kickoff at 2:30. What a great place. What a great atmosphere. What great views. What a great way to spend the weekend, homecoming weekend, at the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. Memberships available.
Announcing Genco's Car Hugger Special. Right now, refinance your auto loan at Genco and get 3 months of no car payments. Plus, your loan will be automatically entered for a chance to win your next 3 car payments on us. Enjoy 5.19% for 48 months and then skip your payments until 2025. Subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Time to talk Big Ten with Big Ten Country's own Kenneth Davis, live from the Windy City, one of my favorite cities on earth. I read something this morning, Kenneth, and I know that you'll appreciate this living in Chicago, but I'm a comedy aficionado and performer from time to time. Chicago is America's funniest city, and I kind of think that's true. They got Second City, tons of great stand-ups from there. Like, not only are you the best sports city, but you guys might be the funniest city, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about stand-up comedians, one, you could talk about, and it's all from all swaps, from Blacks to whites to Latinos. You mentioned Second City, and I think you and I are kind of the generation. It wasn't the initial Saturday Night Live cast, but maybe like those 80s into the 90s cast.
Farley.
You had so many of those people, even, just writers, Conan writing from there, him living in Wrigleyville, Conan O'Brien, like a lot of people, Tina Fey being like a lot of people, if they didn't come from Chicago, trained in Chicago before they took that next step. Because listen, if you've never been here, and Paul said it the other day, when it's not cold, when it's not cold, it's one of the best cities to live in. All right. Like when it's cold, it can be something. It is like if you're not used to, like, the only people that can like out talk us cold is like Minnesota. Like you have to go like their cold maybe is slightly greater, and I mean this in a worse way than our cold. But this is like New York can't talk to me about cold. Like this is a different cold when it gets cold. But yeah, it's a great city to live in. There's a lot of talent here in Chicago. I will say this. I think one of the things that's, I won't say it's a negative, but it's unfortunate that there's not a lot of places here, avenues and platforms to kind of boost that talent. So some of it can remain and fester here and bring even more talent out, because it's easier when you see something closer to you to know that you can also accomplish the same tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. Kenneth, you are president of the Drew Aller fan club, and he is questionable this week.
Yes, he
is. Game time decision. I hate those words. I hate them for anybody. Like, even like when I'm watching like FSU play a rival, if you tell me their quarterback's a game time decision, what I believe is that is gamesmanship for me to just be stressed that like he's not really hurt. They're just telling me he's hurt and he's going to come in and throw for 300 yards, and everybody's going to talk about, oh, that ankle tape game. So there we go. Anyhow, I worry about this for Penn State, but this is a game where both head coaches do not do well in this type of game where you're playing another top 5 team. Well, one of them has to win. So how does this break down for Penn State, especially if Drew Aller does not play in the game?
Man, you're going to me in this little segment real early. If Drew Aller doesn't play in the game, I'll even just open up and say this. I went back and forth a lot with this discussion. And even though, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, that under Tom Allen, the defense up at Penn State hasn't been the same as it was under Manny Diaz leaving, of course, to take over head coaching position. But we have seen bits and pieces, and also, losing to the pros, Adika Ison and Chop Robertson. We've talked about on here, Bill Carter stepping up and playing more on the line. When you look at Ohio State, you look at the fact that Josh Simmons is out. And one thing you would think with Ohio State is that they will be able to somewhat protect the quarterback, and even in that, be able to open up lanes for the running game. You're looking at last week versus Nebraska, 2.1 yards a carry and on 64 rushing yards. And the fact that, Will Howard was getting at Will Howard, Nebraska. And I think even though I'm fond of the University of Nebraska, and we've talked about what Matt Rule is doing up there, they're not to the point where I think that a school that's viewed as a national champion should be able to beat them by more than several points. So that alone, and that's with the fact that they went for it on 4th and goal, where if they kicked the field goal, it would have been by 1 point they would have won, and then we don't know what may have happened. So looking at being at Beaver Stadium, we talked about James Franklin and on the road and how that has kind of hindered Penn State. I think if Drew Aller doesn't play, now there's an issue for Penn State, because I think the fact that there's better skilled position players at Ohio State, even though the quarterback has to be upright in order to get those receivers the ball. But you've seen that, you can't take advantage of having Henderson, that terrific running back, in the backfield because they're not opening up lanes. With Drew Aller, though, Drew Aller, to me, of course, being the president of the fan club, as you mentioned, is better than Will Howard. And I think they may lean on him a little bit more. And add to that, when you talked about him being injured, the fact that he's a mobile quarterback too. So even if he is healthy, does he have his full capacity to do the things you may need him to do? Because we did see what that Ohio State defensive line was doing against our boy Dylan Raiola last week. And even though I was talking about the trenches on the other side, the offensive line, the defensive line with all those players that return to Ohio State is still getting that job done. And you're going to need Drew Aller to be mobile to get it done. I personally believe that if Drew Aller is healthy, and this is going to be crazy, James Franklin gets his first victory versus Ryan Day as a head coach in Beaver Stadium. I will say this: if Drew Aller is out, I will go with Ohio State beating Penn State and helping themselves even further when it comes to the playoffs for the national championship.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by the game all the way around. This is a game, Kenneth, and I asked you about this, and the reason I did is because, both these teams in the first year in the Big Ten, they have not met any kind of expectations. USC's been wildly disappointing since that first win against LSU. Washington is in a transition that I would wish on no program, but I think they're in good hands with Jed Fish. He knows what he's doing. It's just when you lose 20 starters, 18 of them to the draft and then the other 2 to Alabama, like your life is going to be hard, like no matter what. And but this is a game at Husky Stadium. How do you see this one going from 2 teams who really have no identity right now at this point in the season?
Listen, last week, one of the questions you asked me was USC a fraud, right? And again, this is traditionally 2 Pac-12 schools, and you mentioned that Washington is in somewhat more of a transition than what we believe, even though we may not be fully behind Lincoln Riley, particularly what he's getting done on the offense. Even the defense, we talk about D'Anton Lynn necessarily, they haven't got enough players in with him just coming in from UCLA. To be honest with you, I still think USC has too many weapons. I think it depends on Miller Moss being upright. And I think that even though we're down on USC right now, and look, Will Rogers can do some spectacular stuff. Like he's a tricky quarterback with some versatility to him. But I don't think when you look at all the weapons on the edge that USC has, and the fact that we know that Miller Moss can play at such an elite level, and at times, depending on how well the offensive line fares, USC can do pretty well with consistently running the ball. I don't think Washington's going to be able to stop SC. So even though, like you say, we don't know who these teams are, I think USC is further along than what Jed Fish is getting done this first year at Washington.
Yeah. It's such a strange. I thought early in the year, like, this is going to be an interesting one because I did think that like Jed Fish would be able to maybe get something going with Rodgers. But the more you see, like, they've got some good things, but they also have some things where you're like, oh man, like they really got cleaned out. They really, really just got cleaned out depth-wise. Iowa, Wisconsin, these are both two teams to me that Iowa has exceeded my expectations on offense for sure. I mean, they're scoring 40 points in game. I mean, like, you know, if they had scored 28 points in games, I'd been like, hey, way to go, Tim Lester. You really turned it around. I'm wondering how much this will change Kirk Ferentz's approach as he goes into the offseason about, like, you know, if you went and got a transfer quarterback that was even a little bit dynamic, right? Like, you might be able to do some things with the way that you guys coach defense and offensive line there. Like, getting some skill players that can actually maybe boogie a little bit could be interesting. Wisconsin has not been able to keep a quarterback, but I see the Luke Fickell tentacles, like the roots growing. This one, to me, very, very, very interesting just because you're seeing two teams figuring out the new Big Ten, I guess, a little bit at the same time.
Okay, let me start off with Wisconsin and Luke Fickell. This year, and you look at the fact where Van Dyke goes out early, and you've been building him up all off season, and then you have to move to Braden Locke, and we know Braden Locke came in last year, but still you thought this offense was going to perform better under Tyler Van Dyke. You're starting to see some of the stuff, and I don't want to make it seem like it's a true air raid, but some air raid aspects, and I think you just have to get more players to come up there to kind of fit that system, and you don't want to totally change from what Wisconsin does with really good offensive linemen and really good running because you're still within the Big Ten. But getting to where you said with Iowa and Iowa being able to score, and I think one of the questions now with, you know, Cade McNamara dealing with concussion, and you have from Northwestern Braden Sullivan, who we saw last year, do you know, with the stuff that Northwestern was going under, perform decently. The question will be how easy will it be able to score versus Wisconsin. And the thing, and I've said this to you earlier in the season, Wisconsin's defense has some flyers. Like these young men are athletic and they can definitely get around. But I didn't mean to be honest with you, like, who can really stop Caleb Johnson? And even though during this season, you know, they've only lost one game when he's rushed for 100 yards. And that was versus Iowa State, and that's a rivalry game. So that's a little bit, you can kind of understand when it's an in-state rivalry game, a team being able to get over on you. We made jokes about Iowa, you know, from Kirk Ferentz's son and not be able to put up 20-something or 25 points last year when you're talking about his contract. And you know this when you're talking about Parker's defense. Iowa that defense is the son of a gun. Like that half defense will travel, and that is one of the most consistent defenses in college football. I won't clearly say it's on the same par as what Kirby, a really great Kirby Smart defense is, but it's one of those schools just slightly on another tier. And I could say that I may have Kirby on it. I probably will have a Georgia team on a tier alone when we're talking about some of the defenses during this last 6 years that Kirby Smart has fielded down at Georgia. So I'm really trying to give props to what Iowa does on the defensive side. I think Iowa is going to be able to defeat Wisconsin because I still think that Wisconsin has some ways to go with really getting things done on the offensive side. We still didn't see how this offense, and I mentioned earlier with Tyler Van Dyke's injury, how this offense was perhaps supposed to be. And I don't know if it was going to be like that anyway, because the question is kind of what they can do out on the boundary with getting some more receivers kind of involved, to kind of opening up and kind of getting that extra man out of the box. So I'm definitely going to go with Iowa. Iowa's one of those teams that can break your heart because they always have so much potential, but they can never get it done. And then when it looks like the season is over is when they go on a winning streak. And when, of course, when there was conferences in the Big Ten, they would go on and win the conference after having some horrible losses early. But yeah, I'm definitely going to take Iowa over Wisconsin.
The last thing I sent you to talk about, but I do want to ask a question about Indiana here in a second, or the potential for a three-way tie in the Big Ten. But how does Michigan, a year off of a national championship, with the best facilities that anybody has, find themselves with 3 QBs who can't play?
I think it's, if I'm being honest, it's ridiculous. And you're talking about a really good recruiter in Sherrod Moore historically. I think looking what you have in the house, or the old saying, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush,
Yeah.
that perhaps you should have dived into that bush and looked for a bird or two. Because, I mean, if you think about it, Michigan, I don't think either one of us would believe Michigan would be a national champion. But just think about if they had a consistent quarterback, how much better they would be this season, because we know that they can we know the trenches are still doing what they're doing in Michigan. They still has to have some growth on the offensive side, but they're still getting it done. And if you had a quarterback that, again, like we were just talking about with Iowa and Wisconsin, if you have a quarterback to get another guy out of the box, it can really benefit you. I think I said it on here. I think that was a mistake not to enter into the transfer portal. You look at the fact that Jack Turtle retires, and all the best to him. Citing concussions, you want what's best for that young man, and then having to go back into the bullpen to pull out Davis Warren. There were always questions about what Alex Orji can do as far as throwing the ball with his arm and being kind of more of a one-dimensional quarterback. I think this one, and I'll put it like this. I don't think it's a situation where it's going to hamstring them for the long term, but I think it's a lesson learned, particularly in the new environment in college football, because this is the thing, hypothetically saying, let's say you enter the transfer portal, right? You bring in player X. Player X comes in, he plays decent, but he doesn't play well. You could have always went back to the bullpen and used these quarterbacks that you had. It wouldn't have been now, perhaps one of those players may have transferred, but right now we already know that they're not valuable enough to where you had to worry about if they were going to transfer or leave the program. So I think they made a mistake. You pointed out, of course, how well the facilities are, and it's a great institution to have a degree from. But I think that one thing, too, we can kind of see that Michigan hasn't fallen off the radar. So it's bad this year. Look, we were talking about the situation with McCord last week and the week before. And I could sit here and be like, and I told you, I understand why they went with Will Howard, but it still hasn't proven right that Will Howard is the best guy. I'm not saying that either one was the best quarterback to lead Ohio State to a championship. If that's the goal, and we know it's championship or bust. But I look at the same kind of situation where with Michigan, where sometimes even when you go into the transfer portal, you may not find a guy, but I still would have preferred to find out what I could have had out there, because I kind of already knew going with the Cal McCord what I had. So let's try to see if we can get someone to elevate instead of just sticking with Davis Warren and Turtle and, of course, Alex Orji.
Will Howard, when you bring up Will Howard, Ohio State, it is weird to me that they did not get in on Will Howard, just because if I were to compare if I wanted to say who's the Diet Coke version of J.J. McCarthy, I would say that's Will Howard. Like, he's not as good as J.J. McCarthy, but if you wanted less of a transition, if you wanted to be able to do some of the same things you did a year ago, I would have thought that Will Howard at Michigan would have made a ton of sense with that offensive line, with that running game, with the defense that they have, but they didn't even bother. Like that to me is so strange. And I would even venture that Will Howard is a better fit in that system than he is in Chip Kelly's.
Yeah, because what you're saying, that when you're thinking about Chip Kelly and when you're thinking about what Ryan Day wants, it is also to really put the ball in the air. And you think about what J.J. McCarthy did last year, and this was going to a national championship. Let's be honest, sometimes they took the ball out of his hands, but J.J. McCarthy was an excellent quarterback on third down conversions. So I can agree with you. But even while you were discussing that, I was trying to put myself in the mind of perhaps why Sherrone Moore did what we're discussing and what we're disappointed in. And perhaps he viewed it as these quarterbacks know the system and it's easier to keep going in the direction that we've been going. Again, I'm with you. I would have probably went after a Will Howard just because if he failed, he failed. But also, Will Howard is better than the quarterbacks that they have at Michigan right now. And it's not a slight at anybody. The proof's in the pudding. He may not be a world beater, but you can still see that he's getting it done on Saturdays. And they may not be blowing teams out. Ohio State, of course, may not be blowing teams out, but they're still, for the most part, winning. So, yeah, it would have made sense. I would love to talk to some of the reporters up there because I'm sure they've asked at ad nauseum Sherrone Moore perhaps why they didn't, and I'm sure he said that he thought the quarterbacks in-house were going to be able to get the job done, but for right now, it hasn't come to fruition.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, Indiana wins. Let's just say this. Oregon wins this week. Indiana wins this week. Penn State wins this week. We're still on track for that three-way tie with the games running out. Obviously, Indiana and Ohio State play. In that like three-way tie scenario, right now as it stands, if it held to the end of the year, Indiana would be the one that's on the outside looking in. They'd still make the playoff, but how much of a bummer would that be for that team in particular not to get a chance to raise a conference championship banner?
It'd suck. It'll really suck when you're looking at what they did. And look, I'm the president of the Gerala fan club, and of course, the team that we're talking about that probably wouldn't be there will be Penn State. And because Oregon, when you think about what Oregon did to Ohio State and let us know who they were, that sets them above both teams, in my opinion. We're sitting here talking about Indiana and Matt Rule talking about them being in the top 10 if they weren't out of the top 25 before the season started. But I have to say this, though, Paul, to be honest, and it's not their fault. It's not the new head coach's fault, Signecki's fault. But you still got to say that's where they were last year. And Penn State did play to a certain level last year. So when you're looking at the selection committee and the evaluators, they're going off of they are bringing in some of last year because that's how you have to start out the poll. So it would be unfair, particularly when you're talking about this anomaly of the season that the Hoosiers have had this year. And I'll say this, and I know anybody from Penn State is going to be upset with me. It would be cooler for a Big Ten championship game with Oregon versus Indiana, but it also would sound crazy. If I told you 10 years ago that there would be a Big Ten championship game with Oregon, the Ducks, rather, before I say the Mighty Ducks, versus the Hoosiers, you would smack me in my face and tell me that I'm crazy. But still, it would be ideal to see a team like that. I think the interesting question would be, now that everybody kind of knows perhaps who Indiana is, we have to see if they can continue this next year. It'll be interesting to see where Indiana is spotted next year, and can they keep this momentum going, or was this more of an outlier than something that's trending up in a proper way?
Kenneth, I was just about to let you go, but a friend of mine sent me this tweet that I just read. It has nothing to do with anything we've ever talked about, but knowing your pop culture love, my pop culture love, and that we just did talk about comedy, Eddie Murphy is going to play George Clinton from P-Funk in a biopic by Bill Condon, who directed him in Dreamgirls, where he got his only Oscar nomination, which he should have gotten one for Coming to America. I don't care what anybody says. It's the funniest movie that's ever been made. But
come, sir. Come here. You come. Yeah, please continue. Please continue.
Yeah,
listen,
look, Coming to America, funniest movie ever made. There will never be a funnier movie than Coming to America. There will never be a better acted movie in the comedy realm than Coming to America. Never, ever, ever. Eddie Murphy has been ignored on that for far too long. Far too long. Look, Arsenio Hall's been in 2 movies. This one and that other one. I mean, and listen, he was good because of Eddie, right? Like,
totally. Went to see. We didn't sit together. Me, my brother, and a family friend went to see Coming to America with my grandmother. All right, to let you know how much she must have wanted to see this movie. So at the time, we wasn't really thinking about it, but clearly she wanted to see this movie. Coming to America, hilarious. Shows if you haven't seen it, the range of characters. If you know Eddie Murphy does. I'll say this. It's funny when you bring that up. I wasn't into it's before my time. It's before you and my time. Yeah. I wasn't into black exploitation movies. I did watch some when I was in college, like The Mac, and it had me talking in various ways, very disrespectfully, me and my college roommate. But the reason I'm bringing it up, there was an actor from back then known as Dolomite, Rudy Raymore. And Rudy Raymore used to rhyme his words and stuff, and they do a lot of bad kung fu. But it was cool at the time. Again, I didn't grow up in that time. But the point being, Eddie Murphy, 3 years ago, baby. He did like a bio on Dolomite, and you found out things. It was really good because I never knew that this was really this character, and that Rudy Raymore was like on his last stand, and he built this character, and this character took off, and how it became a business. So when you're telling me that he's going to play George Clinton, and I think George Clinton doesn't get the props that he deserves. It's growing up. My family, my dad had. I used to have Parliament Funkadelic records, and you would open them up, and the bind was crazy.
Yeah.
But when I got older and understood funk, because growing up in hip hop, you're kind of listening to things being in a concise order a lot with the beat, and the funk is different, right? Like it's on the one. Right, most things are like funk is boom, so it's like it's on the it's a different rhythm. But George Clinton, when you're talking about where he came from and the musicians that came from James Brown and just the funk and what he did and how he let Bootsy Collins and these people, all these Maceo become free and becoming this experiment of his. And business-wise, he kind of messed himself up because he had two bands, but they were really one band. So I think he got sued for that. And I think he also probably gave over some of the ownership rights that will benefit him today. But even like today, there are like I'm a huge Outkast fan, and like that crew, like when they were first coming together and working with this big time producer in Atlanta named Dallas Austin, who made hits for like TLC and a lot of other groups that like Madonna, a lot of other people that Dallas Austin worked for. George Clinton would actually be working in Dallas Austin's studio, and he influenced, of course, what they did sonically, but even mentally on how he thinks and this type of stuff like that. So I think it'd be terrific for Eddie Murphy to do this. I hope it gives him another chance to perhaps be nominated and finally win an Oscar. And I'm not saying this just because I have an affinity for Eddie Murphy. He really takes these type of roles serious. Like it's not just I'm doing it to do it. He dives deep into these characters. And then when you just think about the crazy life, the drugs, the funk, the music, like this is going to be wild if they really go into perhaps what was going on with George Clinton. I wonder the amount of time, because you think about it, like that movie, if you're pushing 3 hours, that's getting close to a lot. So how much of his life can they really focus on? And George Clinton is still out there touring right now, everybody. But yeah, you hit me with that. That's a wild way to end today's segment.
I'll tell you this. George Clinton lives just outside of Tallahassee, where I went to school. And so back in the early 2000s, when he would get ready to go out on tours, there's a club, I don't know if it's still there, but it was called The Moon. And The Moon was one of these places that had like a hip-hop night, a country night. They just had like, depending on the night of the week, they had a different thing. But it had a great stage for bands. So like you could see some pretty decent bands there because that's really what it was made for. But you can't just subsist on that in Tallahassee in 2001, right? You have to have club nights, and it was a really big club. So I went and saw him twice. Once I had to go by myself because I could convince no one around me that they wanted to go see this guy from the 70s and 80s. They're like, oh, no, I don't want to go. Like, I don't even know who that is. I was like, he was in PCU. Like that guy. Like, oh, no, I don't. Yeah, no, that's dumb. And then I finally got like a group of my friends to go, and they're like, I'm like telling you, like, look, guys, you don't even have to, like, you'll feel like you're on drugs just watching him.
Yes.
Like it is wild. It is the craziest thing. Nobody goes harder in a show in a little bar too, like for what he could be doing than him. If he's still if he comes to your town, go see him while he's still around. I was dying laughing both times. Like, he's just funny, and it's weird, and it's wild. You don't understand half the stuff he's even talking about. It's great. So Eddie Murphy, George Clinton, awesome thing. This is why, you know what? We're going to talk after here in the next couple weeks. We've got to plan out our future as podcast partners. Garrett's already... He's told me we've wasted too much time not doing a full-length podcast together.
Let's take the world over, Garrett. Paul, let's get this organized and get it together. You guys, I appreciate you, and I hope you guys have a terrific show the remainder of the show, man.
Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country, my new best friend in the whole world. This is 365 Sports.
Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco, and for the rest of October, buy any new Jeep and get the Jeep Wave program, which includes 2 oil changes, 2 tire rotations, good for 2 years from the date of purchase. Each Wrangler has a trail-rated badge, indicating that the vehicle has passed a series of off-road tests capable of handling tough terrain. These tests include off-road traction, maneuverability, articulation, ground clearance, and water fording. Ram Power Days heating up and has throughout, all year. But this month of October at Allen Samuels in Waco, scary good deals on over 300 new cars, trucks, and SUVs. Get a demo 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab 4x4 for $16,000 off MSRP. Get 0.9% financing for 72 months on any in-stock 2024 Ram 1500 Crew Cab or Quad Cab. How about the Sky One Touch on a Wrangler, offering the major benefit of being able to easily open and close a large portion of the roof with just a push of a button, providing convenient way to enjoy open-air driving while the weather is still so nice, while quickly adapting to changing weather conditions without needing to pull over, manually adjust the top, essentially combining the openness of a soft top with the ease of a hard top, making it perfect for those who want maximum versatility in their Wrangler experience. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340, east of 84 in Waco.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Abrams Action Network HQ with us. And if you want the numbers when it comes to gambling on college football, the NFL, whatever it is, Evan has got. I mean, I got lost in the NFL stuff last night, and Monday we're going to have to get into that because it is the level that you go to is just like it's a little bit deeper than plus minus and these things. So really, really interesting work that you do. So one of the reasons we love having you on every week. But this is a week in college football where we've got the rankings coming next week. There's a lot of tension kind of going on in fan bases. And one big game we'll talk about right off the top that's going to affect a lot of it is Ohio State and Penn State. Drew Aller is a game time decision. Game time decision to me usually means you're not going to play. I mean, more often than not, you know. So how does this affect that game? And James Franklin has had a really hard time making these games the ones that put Penn State over the top.
Yeah, so the line actually hasn't done too much considering the news of pretty much the top quarterback in the game. It's, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the other side of this on the Buckeyes side, so I would say Aller's just as important across the board. But the line has been Ohio State minus 3.5, mostly from the start. as expected with the question mark on the Penn State quarterback, all the actions on Ohio State, the tickets, the money, everyone seems to be wanting to go that side, but the line's not really budging. And I think all week, as you alluded to, people are having the story of, all right, so Ryan Day, 2-6 straight up and against the spread versus top 5 teams. You're like, all right, great storyline. Well, what about the other side? Well, I think you know about the other side. Franklin is 1-15 straight up, 5-11 against the spread versus top 5 teams. They both are just in the poop in this one, and one of them has to win. So I think throwing some of that out the window is probably the way, especially without Penn State's quarterback potentially. But then you look at this. So like as a home underdog, Penn State's lost 6 consecutive games straight up with their last win, 2016 against Ohio State. And then you say, okay, well, what about top 10 teams? Ohio State, 6-14-1 against the spread in those games, covering just, 2 of their last 10. They're second worst in that span since 2018 behind just Michigan State. So both sides of the ball have question marks around big games, but someone's got to win. Now, the question mark around Penn State's quarterback kind of has me paused a tiny bit because I do like the Nittany Lions here. Their offensive line ranks top 20 in line yards and havoc allowed, indicating clear rushing yard lanes, pockets for passing. I think Penn State's the right side. I just wish I had a more concrete answer on not even if he's going to play, but his health, because that's all that matters. Like if you want to play him in the game, go all ahead. But I just don't think we know exactly what we're getting here. Then you look at Ohio State quickly. Offensive and defensive lines are outside the top 50 in line yards. So I think the Nittany Lions, even without Aller, should be able to push the ball on the ground. I kind of like them in this one, but it does give me a little bit of pause, man.
Wow, again, there's just always like this little information. And Ryan Day, if you look at the record that he has just as a head coach, anybody would want him, but he has he and James Franklin, like you said, they have the same exact problem. Like you can beat everybody you're supposed to beat, but when it comes down to beating the one team that is a toss-up, they just don't do it.
Yeah, let's call for overtime here with multiple fourth quarter miscues by head coaches in terms of tendencies and clock management. And someone's got to win. Will probably be like, I don't expect this to be a very well timed and coached game if it's tight in the second half, because both of them have shown issues in that area throughout. So it's very fun and very college football-y that we have this top 5 matchup and both of them facing each other. I can't wait.
Yeah. Ole Miss and Arkansas. Ole Miss is probably, I would say, of a fan base that has to be the most disappointed about how this season has gone.
Yeah.
It might be Ole Miss at the top of that list because they did so much to build that roster. And, you know, that loss to Kentucky really took the wind out of their sails. They follow up, they lose to LSU in a game where the fourth quarter was just not very well coached all the way around, and things went against them. And here you have Arkansas, who is kind of playing with house money right now because Sam Pittman was getting fired. Nobody knew what the future was. Talon Green, still very raw, but so much fun and such a weapon in that offense that has changed things around. Sam Pittman likely off the hot seat, barring a collapse now. And Ole Miss is kind of searching for answers.
Yeah, I would say Arkansas doesn't have too much to lose here because I think most would assume a loss anyway. And from Kiffin's point of view, I mean, he's been great in this spot. He's 28-8 straight up, 19-16-1 as a head coach, as a road favorite since 2019. That is 14-2 straight up, 11-4-1 in that spot. So he's done well on the road. And just from like a talent point of view, Ole Miss is a much, much better team. And it says it with the numbers. So it was -8, went all the way down to 6.5. Now bounced back up to 7.5, which is it currently sits. And like most of these games, all the action's on the Rebels. I think everyone wants to put their dollars there just because the talent between the two teams and the expectation here. So the thing I look at historically, though, Ole Miss has struggled with the Hogs. They're 1-10 against the spread versus Arkansas since 2013, including just 8-12 straight up. And this number is crazy. 4-16 ATS in their last 20 matchups. So it hasn't been an easy one, even if when you look at, most of the time you might have the talent gap anyway. But this time you're laying 7.5. So what I would probably look at here is either a live play on Ole Miss to see if I can get it down under that 7, Or I might look at just doing the first half with Ole Miss and then seeing how the game goes, either doubling down or kind of rolling back on Ole Miss in this one. Ole Miss is first in Havoc. Havoc refers to percentage of plays in which the defense records a tackle for loss, forced fumble, intercepted pass, or a broken pass. So Arkansas should have immense difficulty trying to move the ball against Ole Miss's defense, even without talking about the talent on Ole Miss's offense. This is just the way I have to look at it. I have to want to lay this with Ole Miss. Now, outside of the trip to Baton Rouge, Dart has committed just 4 turnover-worthy throws on the season. So, yes, one outlier, but I do have trust in that team, in that offense to be able to do what they have to do. I like Ole Miss here, but yeah, you're right. I mean, what I've seen so far, you've had roller coasters, you've had landmines, you've had all sorts of things that tend to be things that come out of Kiffin teams, which, you know, sometimes you say to yourself, well, maybe he's looking ahead already to someplace else, which has been talked about. But this is just a must for me, just how the difference in gap is just too much to overcome.
Yeah, Ole Miss doesn't have mystique, I think. I think that's part of the thing is that
good word.
Some teams can win on mystique. They can, you know, absolutely kind of, you know, have the ghosts come out, and the Ole Miss just doesn't have that history, right? One of the teams that you would say he might be looking at, but may not even be open if they can close rather strong, is Florida, who does have a bit of mystique in that they've won several national championships, although that's been a very long time ago. They've got Georgia this week. It's a massive spread for Georgia. It's 16.5, I think, when I last checked this morning. But Billy Napier has shored up that defense. They're way better against the run. As a matter of fact, I thought he was going to get fired after the UCF game because that was a terrible matchup. And UCF, like, the teams are going in opposite directions. And, you know, Billy Napier, I still think he's not the coach next year because it's already kind of out there. But if he can grab this one, you know, and shock the world, then he's probably not gone. Like, those are those things that are happening. Is this one that maybe could be interesting because that's a 16.5-point spread? This is not a classically dominant Georgia team, although they're very, very good, but Florida's maybe tighten some things up here.
Yeah, I think the story of the entire game is the line. So it was actually 20.5 Wednesday of last week. It was 17 by Sunday, 16 yesterday, and looking at our consensus line, which goes across a bunch of different books, it's now 14.5. So it's pretty much dropped 6 points since the look ahead. And I think that kind of tells to where the value lies. So Florida's lost 12 consecutive games straight up as a double-digit underdog, dating back to 2016. Overall, they are just 3-22 as double-digit dogs straight up since 1990. And they're actually beating Georgia in this spot back in 2014. So I guess there is some sort of precedence. I think the angle to take when handicapping the game, Georgia's obviously on a little bit of extended rest here, coming off the bye after a 5-game ATS losing streak 2 weeks ago. And then under Kirby Smart, 20-3 straight up, 15-8 against the spread on any extended rest. So he's done well preparing for this one. Now, the line is a little bit high in those circumstances, but personally, I make the spread 16. I kind of look towards the first half under a little bit. Now, I like 27.5. It's down to 26.5, which gives me a little pause, especially first half. 27 tends to be a key number. So 26.5 gives me a little pause. But listen, neither Florida nor Georgia have found ways to put a point on the board early. In fact, neither team ranks in the top 80 in first quarter scoring. I expect Georgia's defense to show up and really give Florida some trouble. Georgia's pass D is just really, really good. And I think you're going to see a little bit of punting back and forth. Georgia might get some scores on the board. I just don't know how Florida is going to score. So again, I hate doing this because I'm more of a dog better than I am a favorite better, because I do feel like the value tends to sometimes be more on that side. But again, with the Ole Miss game like this, the talent gap is too wide. So I would look first half under. I would look Georgia, but I would like under that 16 number, preferably 14 on the dot would be great. So we'll see what happens there. But I agree. The mystique of Florida is something noteworthy, but I feel like, and they've been terrible there, but it happens more in the swamp than it does anywhere else. So we'll see how they do here.
Yeah, rivalry game, cocktail party, Jacksonville, all that stuff, But yeah, it's not the Swamp. A&M, huge win, probably their biggest win in the program since Johnny Manziel beat Alabama, because when Johnny Manziel beat Alabama, they still had a shot at the SEC. The last time they beat Alabama, that was not really in question. It was just upsetting Alabama. Yeah. Here, this one is knocking out, not necessarily knocking out, but setting a team back in that SEC title race that was right there with you with the same conference record. So you get a head-to-head there. But now they go on the road to South Carolina, who's been sneakily tough to beat all year long. A&M is not saying who the quarterback's going to be, but they have two fairly good options there, especially if Marcel Reed, is out there. This could be a trap game, but what does the money say?
Second most tickets of any game on the slate on Saturday right now. So this is a highly contested. A lot of people have interest betting this one. Large action on A&M. If I'm looking at it right now, so it is 87% of the tickets and 92% of the money laying a road team in A&M here. The line is mostly not moved. It's mostly been about 3. Just this morning kind of ticked up to that 3.5. I think that probably tells you what the smart bet is a little bit. So this is, to me, the best situational spot on the board this weekend. Coming off a bye week, South Carolina hosting A&M, having a comeback win off of LSU, first, and then taking over first sole possession in the SEC. To me, the Gamecocks aren't in contention for an SEC title, but they are 2 plays away from sitting at 4-1 in league play potentially. Wins over Alabama, maybe even LSU instead of a pair of losses by 2 and 3 points. After 7 straight wins, A&M finds itself ranked inside the top 10, but I'm just not sure they belong there. And I will, one nugget I'll look at here. Excluding the COVID season, South Carolina, 12-5-1 ATS at home against top 10 teams since 2005. They're covering by almost 7 points per game, and that includes 7 outright victories as either an underdog or a small favorite. I'm going to go with the Gamecocks here. I want the 3.5, but I just feel like it's a great situational spot where A&M probably should have dropped a game or 2 leading up to this one, and South Carolina maybe shouldn't be on that type of skid facing all these other teams leading up to it. So Gamecocks, here we go.
Just like we all predicted at the beginning of the year, Pitt and SMU would be playing for a game with actual playoff implications. I mean, the winner of this game is sitting pretty now, headed towards a potential 3-way tie in the ACC, given everybody's schedule down the stretch. But this is a huge, huge game. And if you had looked at this on September 1st, just September 1st, you'd have been like, well, by that time, nobody's going to care. 60 days from now, that's going to be a game that we're like, if you're in the bar, you're like, oh, is this Pitt and SMU? All right, whatever. That's what people would have thought about it. But Kevin Jennings playing, Eli Holstein playing. There was some question about that early in the week. Kevin Jennings cleared today. He's going to play. This one is intriguing to me for the fact that it went from a game no one cared about to a game that the whole ACC is watching right now and wondering how this is going to affect all of them.
Yeah, many people would have probably looked at this game on their side screen and been like, what conference do these guys play in again? Yeah. I can't remember. This is a completely fascinating matchup for most of the public. And it's kind of comparable. Anyone who watched Texans Jets last night. So you have the 2-6 Jets against the 6-2 Texans, and the Jets are favored in the game. Kind of similar here. So you've got SMU opening at about 5.5, now up to 7.5, and Pitt's undefeated. So you have an undefeated Pitt team getting over a touchdown, which is off the bat something probably most people would bat an eye to and be like, give me some information to figure out why this is possible. So I'll just give one blanket number here. So undefeated teams in game 8 or later as a 6+ point dog, 7-27 straight up, 14-19-1 against the spread since 2010. Interesting enough, those games 21-13 to the under. So kind of some sort of defensive battles, but it seems to me the number feels about right considering the market tends to be right in this spot. I would be more interested in SMU than I am in Pittsburgh, especially this might sound crazy. We're projecting this at the Action Hour closer to SMU -10. Just based off the talent on the field, based off of what we've seen from Pittsburgh. I don't want to call it a luck box, but some of the turnovers over the last few weeks, some of the lucky breaks, they really haven't had to play much close football in certain circumstances. And one on the field note, Pitt's explosiveness on the ground just won't show up to me against SMU, a defense that ranks 12th in opponent rush EPA. I'm going to go SMU, and honestly, with the money that I have on SMU currently, I'm going to hope Pitt comes out a little hot. I'm going to roll more on SMU if that line comes down. So, but again, if you're like a normal guy just enjoying his college football weekend, this is something you got to have on a screen, because just based off the line, and if Pitt can pull off the upset, it's going to make for a very fascinating line for them going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, the game I'll be at just right down the street tomorrow night, Baylor versus TCU. There's a lot of you want to talk about mystique. There's a lot of ghosts that's going to be hanging around this one, particularly because Baylor is honoring their 2013 and 2014 Big 12 championship teams. 3 of those coaches, Kendall Briles, Carlton Buckles, and Kaz Kazadi, coach at TCU now. Gary Patterson spent part of the offseason consulting at Baylor, although he's not there now. All these guys are going to be back. A lot of the coaches are going to be back. Like, it's going to be kind of a weird thing. Baylor never beats TCU. Never beats them in any circumstance. Like, they just don't. Like, that was the last team that had a winning record against them, and they're bringing them back. But both these teams are on the upswing right now, and both have favorable schedules down the stretch and are looking to make some hay while the sun shines, particularly Baylor and Dave Aranda, who might be saving his job. Like, if he beats TCU, he can take a huge sigh of relief. This one is... Look, I'm just telling you, I'm not the betting guy. That's why we have you to teach us these things. But I, as a person who knows both these teams pretty intimately.
Yeah, what do you like?
It took me until yesterday to make my prediction. I picked Baylor because they were playing better right now than TCU.
Sure.
But I am fully ready to be wrong about that.
Yeah, so this isn't exact like Texas A&M and South Carolina was an extremely popular play on the board. Of all the games, I said second most popular in terms of tickets. This game's down the list. But the thing that makes it really interesting is in terms of popular underdogs. So TCU getting about 75% of the tickets as an underdog in this one. So everybody coming in on this game seems to love the dog, and it's a very high percentage for an underdog. Usually you see, in the 60s if you're a popular underdog, but this is getting 70 and plus. So to me, the public has seen TCU win both of their games as road dogs already this year. And they haven't won 3 straight games as road dogs since 2017. So some circumstances there. And as you mentioned, TCU has had historical success versus Baylor. They're 12-4 straight up and 12-4 against the number against them since 2006. And that is consistent, as you've mentioned. Again, and even when sometimes they find a way to lose, usually it ain't 2 in a row against this team. So in my opinion, if you're going to play TCU, which it does feel like most people are, I would kind of look at the team total. Here, 28, 35, 43, 34, and 38. Oh, that's Baylor's points allowed last 5 games. I just feel like if TCU is going to do what most of these bettors feel like they're going to do, they're also going to put up points. So first half team total, full game team total. It's something I would look at versus trying to get involved with what I would assume be a very hectic kind of game where a lot of different things can happen on the field with 2 teams who aren't exactly fantastic. So I'm going to root for some points on the road side here.
All right. I can promise you the atmosphere will go from like super excited and pumped to as tense and clinched as you can be. It will, like, I'll tell you, I'm here for all of it. I cannot wait. I'm actually sitting in the stands for this one, which I don't normally do, but a friend has invited me. So I want to, because I want to feel the chaos and anxiety. I have no dog in the hunt other than, we're right here by Baylor. Would love to see them win. Me and my wife will be the only 2 people in the stadium here going, huh? What about that?
I mean, listen, the total, I'll say this, the total has ticked up a little bit, 61.5 to 64. So I do feel like defense might be optional here. So that's the reason I got to do it. I got to assume this might be a 40-37 weird one that Baylor might win. It might look great, but I just don't see their defense being able to stop anything.
Yeah, no, I don't think defense is going to be, just there. Like you have to have 11 other guys on the field. That's for either team. Like you're required to do it, so it'll be there, and we'll see what happens. Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ. Go follow him. Go read his stuff. NFL stuff this week is particularly intriguing, especially when it comes to because this is midpoint of the season-ish, and so we've got kind of the up and down going where you can kind of see where teams are going. And so absolutely go check out Evan on Action Network HQ. This is 365 Sports.
I've had a lot of ailments. My goodness. Hey, this is David Smoke. I'm 65 years old, and I'm going to have some things break down. I work out still most every day. I can't run like I used to. My hip is bothering me, and I've had injections in my back. In fact, one back in April up in Dallas, and it worked, but it did not solve the problem. So I need to get another MRI of my lower back, my lower lumbar, and also at some point figure out, is that what is affecting me having this throbbing pain? And it's more often than I even admit in my right hip. Ideal MRI set me up with an MRI last week, thanks to my doctor calling them and saying, this is what we need from your state-of-the-art imaging machines. So, Ideal MRI, $497 or less every single time. Dr. Rob Maxey and his ownership and partnership, they have done a phenomenal job. This saves you money, a bunch of money. The average is $1,100, and you don't pay anything more and sometimes less with IdealMRI.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Midway Athletics and UBO Business Services are two names that exude winning. From Midway's top Central Texas Star test scores to college-like extracurricular facilities and UBO Business Services industry-leading customer service scores, you can trust in these two winning programs. Best of luck to Coach Joe Gillespie and the Midway Panthers. And look at your sticker on your office equipment. If it does not say UBO, call Midway Class of 2020, Duff, Daxon, Dane, or Sean Hunt at 254-709-2101 or ubeo.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Come back, 365 Sports, our good friend Josh Neighbors. And Josh, I just want to get it out of the way. There was a coup. Triple Option took over the Big 12 Watch channel. It was nefarious. It was all Garrett's plan from the very beginning. He wanted to murder you, but I said no. Not
Thank
yet.
you.
We need to squeeze whatever we can out of him. But in all seriousness, it had just kind of gotten to be kind of a scheduling thing for you,
Yeah.
and the way that was working. So we took a commodity that we already had in the triple option and moved it over to a channel that's got a lot of subscribers, and we're going to create a Josh Neighbors experience, so to speak, where you can expand on Big 12. You can do more things in the world of college athletics and the world of Josh and things that you're interested in. And I couldn't, for one, be more excited about it.
I am too. I'm fired up. You know, first thing I have to say is when I lost my last job, the first people that called me were the folks at 365 Sports. David Smoke, Craig Smoke. I heard from you, Paul. I heard from Brian Etheridge. I mean, you know, Cole. I mean, everybody. It was, and you all immediately offered me a home, which I am so grateful for. And you all have let me do whatever I've like, just really let me cook and let me be myself. And it's been tremendous. It's been fantastic to have a home, and it's been great. So I just want to say I'm so grateful. And I've got you all do such a great job. So I've got nothing but great things to say. And now the folks from Rogue Media, you know, going to work with them, going to work with you all still, have a new show coming up. And, I love the Big 12. I will still cover the Big 12. It'll be just part of what I do. I mean, I'm really looking to expand my coverage of college football because, you know, it's funny. It sounds really weird to say, but you know, the more that you get exposed to certain things and you get exposed to certain people and whatnot, you know, I've always thought I've had something to say. You know, I've always thought I feel like I do a really good job of listening to what other people have to say and using that to inform what I have to say. And so using bits here, pieces here, maybe of something that you said or David said, or, you know, what I hear from Bud Elliott on Cover 3, you know, what I hear from the guys at Split Zone Duo, wherever it is, TV, radio, and try to use that all to make one, you know, kind of inform what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing. And I've got a lot of good feedback about people saying, hey, you know, especially here in Arkansas, like, we really enjoy hearing your perspective on the team because you're not just a blind homer. And, you know, like, that's been really refreshing to hear. Like, people think I've got something good to say, and I'm kind of looking to expand my purview about what I am talking about. So show name TBD, but really what's going to be is we're going to take big games, the big results, and talk about, like, what does it actually mean? Right. Like, what, like this season's been so fascinating. You know, I think I could spend half an hour talking about A&M and LSU last week and what it means that A&M finally got a hire right because they didn't go flash and went for substance. Right. The fact that, you know, they're able to be cool making a quarterback change in the middle of the game and how, you know, Texas tried that a few weeks ago against Georgia, didn't work out, but like, that's okay. Maybe more teams should try it, you know, things like that. Like, you know, and like, hey, how do you build a front line? Right. You know, can you just be a team that passes the ball 50 times a game, still win like LSU tried to do, you know, where games turn, the kicker missing the ball. Like, there's a million different things that are small moments, but like big picture stuff that you can take from those games. And that's really what I want to do. It doesn't mean like my coverage is just going to focus on one game every single week, but I think like the themes that define games, that define seasons and whatnot, I think that's what I'm interested in, and really define the sport and help tell the story. So like, I think that's what I'm super interested in. I'm really excited to do.
Yeah, I can't wait for it, Josh. And so this segment will morph a little bit, but you know, we're Big 12.
We're still a Big 12 household. We're still a Big 12 household.
Yeah,
always will be.
Yeah, we always will be. All right, let's start out. Get into the schedule this week. There's a couple games that are kind of blah, you know, which we might not really go over. We may just kind of talk about programs in general. But one that I'm very intrigued by, Texas Tech found themselves in the news cycle in a really silly way this week because of the helmet comms. So here's where Texas Tech messed up. So basically, the company that did the helmet comms for everyone in college football did not encrypt them. Texas Tech took this as an affront to only them, and very few of them, you know, but the athletic director and their biggest booster kind of got fired up. And I think that comes out of maybe some of the football program being tense about a 2-game losing streak, and Texas Tech took a national story and kind of made it a little bit about them, so much so that their own fan base was like, oh, please stop. No, this is not why we lost those games. Stop. Now they have to go in after they created a little kerfuffle and play one of the two best teams in the league.
Yeah, this is not the preferred spot to be in. The good news is Baron Morton's coming back, and that is huge for them, because I think they've got the offense to potentially hang here in this game with Iowa State. What I do know for a fact is they don't have the defense. Now, Iowa State's offense is not gangbusters. So like the one thing that I think Texas Tech could do is, if your defense does play really, really well, you've got maybe a chance to keep this thing close. But like they're 123rd in points against. Mm-hmm. They really can't stop anybody. Mm-hmm. And Paul, I'd be curious to hear what you think about this. So the last coach to have 3 straight winning seasons is Mike Leach. And we associate Mike Leach with, I think, the most successful stretch in Texas Tech football history. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So like we're on pace for that.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what they want, though. This is not the end result that I think Texas Tech fans were thinking on. And like, I have not been right about a lot of teams this year. BYU, I was totally wrong about, completely wrong about. I had no idea. Colorado, same thing too. Texas Tech, I've always been pointing the finger and saying, show me your defense. It does not matter if you can throw haymakers with teams. Because the thing is, like, if the fighters that are just all action fighters, there's no undefeated all action fighter. Those guys get knocked out. They give you amazing moments and unbelievable memories. Yes, they do. And Texas Tech has been doing that for years. But man, are they susceptible to get KO'd? And they got KO'd a few weeks ago against Baylor, did they not? I mean,
yeah.
So, this thing is. I think this is. It's not like they can stop. They can't stop this thing. Like they can get this thing back on the tracks. But Iowa State on the road, Colorado, at Oklahoma State, West Virginia. 3 of those 4 games are going to be challenges, in my opinion. So I'm very, very curious to see how they look this week after back-to-back losses, one by 24 and one by just 1.
Yep. And Iowa State, God bless them. They're just, they're the right kind of
just a machine.
They're just a machine. Like they go in and like the thing that's funny is like in the metaphor of like halftime adjustments and all that, like when they play wrong, it's just like Matt Campbell and the coaches get in there and like it is a car where they're like, oh, spark plug, give me a spark plug. And then they just put it in and like, running like new, take her on out and they fix it. It's just, it's unbelievable. Kansas State has a game against Houston this week. They're 13-point favorites. Let's not get into that very much because I don't think it deserves a whole ton of time. But I've been impressed with
Houston's getting better.
Yeah.
Houston's improving.
Yeah, they are improving. This is just not the week. They have a good defense though. Like this could kind of, throw a wrench in the machine a little bit. But the other team that is improving is Kansas State. Avery Johnson's figuring out how to win games when he doesn't have his best pitch. And Chris Kleiman the same way. So they're going to be right in this until the end. That Farmageddon game, I can't wait for it.
Man, like this was always my thought about K-State this year. What would ultimately cost them is something that should cost them the youth of their quarterback, because learning how to win is typically a process, right? For a majority of guys, learning how to be successful, like the Matt Campbell 5-star culture thing. Am I surprised this Iowa State team is good? Yes. Should we be surprised? Good Lord, no. He's been telling us to our faces for years. Like it's like they just win. That's what they do. They just win games, right? Didn't expect to last year. They're winning games. This year, I didn't know what their ceiling was. They're just winning games. And like K-State's another one of those winning programs. And everybody's been talking about how excited they are about Avery Johnson. Look at this. This is just simple, but passing yards up until September 21st. 153, 181, 156, 130. Then 259, 224, 298, 253. So, we're in the hundreds in the beginning. We're now in the 200s, right? And the one thing that's gotten better is his passing has very much improved. Were things nip and tuck last week? Yes, they were. That game that was a tight football game. KU's been close last couple of years against K-State, have they not? Mm-hmm. But like KU finds a way, or K-State rather finds a way to win last week. And on a week where like their defense had a really difficult time getting after Jalen Daniels and getting after that running game. Like they got run all over last week. Avery Johnson was good enough. Last week took care of the football as well. That was really big for them. And yeah, so I think just with him, like he is a special talent, but I think right now what you're watching is him trying to run an offense. And I think the talent part will eventually take over later, but I think this part of his development is critical, like becoming a quarterback, becoming a good passer, because we know he's an athlete and we know he's got speed and we know he has instincts, and that stuff will always be there. The quality of his leadership, of his play, when it comes to throwing the ball, taking advantage of what teams are bad at, that's what I think he's developing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The next game is two teams that have disappointed their fans in Arizona and UCF. UCF a 6-point favorite in this one. Man, they both need a win in the worst way here. Mm-hmm. I think, though, Gus Malzahn needs one way, way worse right now.
Yeah. They just gave him the contract extension, so I don't know how much danger he is in. They've got a little bit of they're losing. They've lost 5 in a row now, and they're losing games in all kinds of ways. Like they're getting the crap kicked out of them, in shootouts. I mean, Colorado just absolutely dog walked them. And the issue for UCF is that their defense sucks and they can't throw the ball. And I will say this for Gus Malzahn, like that's been a problem for his teams for a while now. You don't think about prolific passers and Gus Malzahn. John Rice Plumlee was not a good passer. KJ Jefferson, who he brought in, is not a good passer. Ja'Cory Brown is not a good passer. What is the point of all these fun weapons if you can't? And I know like the running game has been good, but like that's all you can do. Like it's like hammer, 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 explosive, hammer, 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 explosive. It's like I was watching a service academy to some extent because like they just can't throw the ball. Mm-hmm. Their defense is bad too. There's not a team generating enough pressure. They look. That's to me, it seems to be where the adjustment is for some of these new teams, is just getting that defense to a point up front, getting to a point where you can control some things. Like Cincinnati up front has gotten a lot better. I think that's why they've gotten better. Houston, we know they can bring some guys in. That's still been hit or miss. They look terrible at times up front, and they look terrible, and decent at times. BYU once again this year, when it comes to like their offensive line, to me has actually not been that good. Defense has been very, very good at times. And like that's I think the big step for these teams coming over from the AAC, and to some extent from the Pac-12 too. It's just getting things right in the trenches.
Yeah,
because we talk about this all the time, though. Like, and this is like basically every league, but the teams that end up winning the conferences are in the trenches. And you can tell me all you want, like the Big 12 is a pass-happy league, but like Texas last year, trenches. Year before that, K-State, trenches. Year before that, Baylor, or TC. Let's see, who's it for that? Baylor, right? Baylor, trenches, trenches. Then the year before that, Oklahoma. I mean, like when Oklahoma this year has the first bad offensive line I can remember Oklahoma having. So it's what it comes down to at the end of the day most of the time. And it's I think for UCF, like the trenches for them, especially on defense, is just not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Arizona State gets Sam Leavitt back. Oklahoma State continues their run to the bottom here of the Big 12. Is this a game where now if Sam Leavitt wasn't playing, I was going to get Oklahoma State a shot. I saw them in person last week. Brennan Presley was great. Alan.
Isn't he awesome? He's always great.
Here's the thing. He deserves so much better than the quarterbacks that have been throwing to him. And really, really, I'm not wishing this on Oklahoma State fans. I just wish that he would be playing somewhere where that would matter, right? Like and it doesn't right now with what they are doing. Is Oklahoma State about to lose their what would be their 6th straight game?
Yeah, this is when they have to win. Like if they want to go to a bowl game this year, and I think I've talked about this a lot with Mike Gundy. He does. He's to me he's the best coach in the league. I've been saying that just because of like what he's built, but it's going to be harder for him to act the way he does and maintain players, and like in this era. It doesn't mean he can't win. He did last year, but they just have to get better guys. Like the trotting out the quarterback they had. Man, you knew that teams were going to key in on the run. And like Alan Bowman did it for like a few weeks, but like Alan Bowman's never done it for a full season his entire career. Why would he start today? Why would he start now? And I didn't think Garrett Rangel looked bad, but like it's just they can't bank on Rangel next year because he's been in and out of the lineup. I don't know if he's playing this week. I think is he out for the year? I don't know how long this.
Yeah, I think he's out for the year.
He's out for the year, right? Yeah. So he's out for the year. Yeah. So like you're going back to Bowman now. Like this is a guy who's 27 years old. Here's the upside. He's 27 years old. We know who he is. Like these are probably his last football games, unless he goes to USF, XF, whatever combo thing, because he's not going to the NFL. So like he's like it's not like Alan Bowman can decide what he wants this thing to be because he's not good enough to. It's not like okay, it's an effort deal. Like he's just not good enough, and that's what's concerning. Like now they beat Arkansas in the year. It turns out Arkansas is not that bad, so they can beat good teams. It's just a matter of like, and they almost beat BYU too. But can they do it here at home? I think it's one of those they have to win. So I expect like we got Mike Gundy's best effort against BYU. That was a fantastic. I thought they coached really, really well. Their tackling sucked, but offensively, I thought they coached really well. I thought both quarterbacks looked prepared and were ready, and they played great. They need more of that this week. They need to take that effort into this week because they should have beaten BYU, and now they're up against the wall, and they have to win 3 of their last 4, and they're playing TCU, Texas Tech, Colorado, and ASU. Yeah. So back against the wall. Tough to get a bet against Mike Gundy, but man, like it's hard to bet on them right now.
Yeah, it is. I'll be at the Baylor TCU game tomorrow night. This one's very intriguing. The old teams are coming back. It's all home week for 2013 and 2014. TCU has had a stranglehold on Baylor over the last decade, really, and. I don't know what to think of this game or what's going to happen. I picked Baylor, but I'm supremely not confident in that pick, just given the history of it. I don't think there's going to be a lot of defense in this game. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Dave Aranda, it's safe to say he needs this one more. Like both teams need this, but I think it's safe to say Dave Aranda needs it more. Because what's the talk around there? Like they think bowl game saves his job, 7 wins saves his job. What do they think?
Bowl game, I think. I mean, if he gets to 6, like, look, if they can't find 6 out of these last 4, then, like, what are we doing? But if they can, then that's improvement for sure.
I mean, you're 4-4, and you're 2 in the league. And you won back-to-back games, right? So you're starting to play better. And look, it looks like Sawyer Robertson. I mean, like, has been obviously much improved, much better, and I think that. They're blocking a lot better. And I think about the Baylor teams that win. It's like every team. They block like it was just like it's outside zone. Like I know it's a bit different with Jake Spavital, but like Dave Aranda really just does want to run the football. And if they can run the ball and have Sawyer Robertson play well, even though their defense to me isn't very good, they're going to be in a lot of games just because I think Dave Aranda understands like pacing of football and how like maintain pace. And like I think he's actually I think there is some sense of like game flow there that is, I like their game flow, but in the last couple of weeks is what I'm really trying to say here. TCU can just, I mean, it's probably just going to be, wild and we know kind of what TCU wants to bring to the table. They had a big win last week, but besides that Houston loss, which was weird and random, they've won 3 of their last 4 and they went on the road to Utah and won, and they beat Texas Tech last week, obviously. So, they're playing close games, so I expect this to be close, but I'm actually going to give Baylor the edge because they're at home, and I want to see if they can control the line of scrimmage.
Okay. All right. Look, there's a lot of people watching this that will love to hear that and some that will not. But, Josh, we will announce the podcast when we figure out a name and all that stuff, but excited for the new adventure that we've got coming up. So that is Josh Neighbors. The kid's back in the game.
I am too. I'm fired up for it. Love you, Paul. Thank you guys so much. Bye, Garrett. Bye, Emery.
Yeah, that's Josh Neighbors. Top 5 coming up next.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
Time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. We continue our run of disruptors with the SEC this week. Of course, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Use our promo code 365 Sports. This is the last little nugget before we go into the weekend. Next week on Tuesday, I'll do the Big 12, but we'll have to see after the playoff rankings are released. Maybe that might be on Wednesday, but we will see. So these are the SEC playoff disruptors. Number 5, Woo Pig Suey, Arkansas. Now, they are, by all intents and purposes, out of this race, but they have upcoming games against Ole Miss, Texas, and Missouri. And Missouri's still on the outside looking in, especially if you still rank them 25th, even though they've had 2 really bad losses. But they've got 3 games against teams that are in the playoff race, are on the outside looking in and need a big win to get back in the playoff race, or are firmly in control of their own destiny, like Texas, and they could shake some things up. That Arkansas-Texas game, I'm telling you right now, will be one to watch. It'll be a nice primer for A&M and Texas at the end of the year. But Sam Pittman has probably saved his job at Arkansas, and they're moving forward. Taylor Green, really exciting. You should tune in and watch the Hogs when you get a chance. Number 4, Ole Miss. One of the teams that Arkansas plays, but Ole Miss in particular, they're on the outside looking in after losses to Kentucky and LSU. And even if they went out at 10-2, there could be other 10-2 teams, like say LSU could wind up 10-2. Well, LSU beat them, so they would go in over Ole Miss. Well, they have games coming up against Georgia, and, well, that's it. But if they beat Georgia, that throws a wrench in Georgia's machine because that would be a second loss for the Dogs. So Ole Miss can find their way into the playoff, but they're going to have to beat Georgia to do it. That loss against Georgia, if it happens, would probably be the death knell for the Rebs, and maybe even Lane Kiffin's time in Oxford, because he might jump to another job, the Gators, at the end of the season, because he's probably the top candidate in Gainesville should Billy Napier in fact get fired, but we'll talk about him in a second. Number 3, South Carolina. The Cardiac Kids. They're in Columbia. They've had some games that could have already put Alabama out of the playoff had they won that one, and LSU as well. Like, those 2 teams would be out of the playoff had South Carolina put it off, and of course, they would be right in the thick of it had they. But they have A&M this weekend. They have Mizzou, and another team that can affect a conference outside of theirs, they have Clemson at the end of the year. So, at any point, if they get a big upset, they can knock a team out of the playoffs or put them behind it and needing help from other teams. So watch out for South Carolina. Here's Ric Flair doing something he was paid to do. He doesn't care about them at all. Number 2, Vanderbilt, the story of the year. By the way, South Carolina and Vanderbilt, that could be a fun one coming up this weekend, or next weekend, I'm sorry. Vanderbilt already almost disrupted Texas. They certainly disrupted Alabama, but they still have LSU and Tennessee on the schedule. Both teams very much in the thick of the playoff race that do not need a loss to Vanderbilt. That would be LSU's third should they not lose before then. But Vanderbilt, a team to watch out for, and we know they're scary because of El Ringon, Diego Pavia. And finally, the team that is number one that could really wreck things, Billy Napier and the Florida Gators. Is that likely? Probably not. But they're not quite as bad as we all thought they were going to be. They're 4-4 right now. Now, could they finish, let's say, 5-7 because their last game is against one of the worst teams in the country, but we need to talk about them? But coming up, Georgia this week, then Texas, then LSU, then Ole Miss. All teams in the playoff hunt. A loss to Florida by any of them would be an absolute killer. And if, say, they got two of them, they might even save this guy's job. Think about that. He was a dead man walking a month ago, but now he's been giving a gift and a curse. The gift is you run through this schedule pretty decently at 2-2, or maybe even 3-1, with that one loss maybe being to like Texas. My gosh, that could be incredible. DJ Lagway on the way up. Billy Napier's figured some things out. Maybe brings in a new play caller next year. Don't think that's going to happen because the back end of that schedule is a monster. Well, until Thanksgiving weekend, and then they get a break. But Billy Napier in Florida could be the biggest playoff disruptor of all the playoff disruptors because they got 4 teams down the stretch in their last 5 games that all, I guess they're 4-3, I'm sorry. In their last 5 games that all could be in the playoff. Unbelievable that this could affect it that much. This is the top 5. We're done for the weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Bye.